Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of The Creative Process. You are here because you, like me, understand that creativity is a lifelong process, and magic, mentalism, the mystery arts are something that need to transcend methodologies. They need to transcend discussions on the latest downloads, and we need to take a deep dive into the philosophical and theoretical side of this. Today, I am super excited to present to you our very special guest. He has been performing for 16 years. He started at the tender age of 11, moving his way up from kids' parties to other events and to what we see him today, where he's performing at playground and he's doing corporate gigs like insane. He is so busy. I genuinely cannot even put it into words. I think he'll do that better than I can. He has been inspired, as far as I could find in my research, he's been inspired a lot by Darren Brown, Peter Turner, and like David Blaine and all these guys. And he hasn't. And if you were to look at his video on his YouTube, he completely fangirled when he met David Blaine. Um, GQ called him the 26-year-old who knew Shah Rukh's ATM pin. He is one of the most hardworking performers, and in my personal opinion, an amazing guy and genuinely India's leading performer. I am proud to welcome Karan Singh Magic to our humble podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Karan.
Thank you so much, man. Kabir, that's a really, really, really humbling introduction. I don't think I can live up to it. Or are there any questions that you ask after this? But thank you so much. That was really nice of you.
It's true. So, Karan, one of the first questions that we'd like to open with here is, can you please tell us how did you get into magic? Because it's not a conventional art form. It's not something most people do. So, how and when did you first know that, oh, this is what I have to do?
I think it's been split into three different parts for me. The first part of it, when I was 3.5, 4 years old, that was my first sort of exposure to magic.
Mm-hmm.
Because I moved to Delhi in 1995. I was born in Bombay. My entire family moved here. And my parents used to work. My elder brother was in school. So I used to spend the day with my grandparents, my dada and my dadi. And they used to have people over to play cards from me every other day. And after they'd gone, I used to help my granddad put the cards back together.
Mm-hmm.
So one day, I noticed that there was a card on the ground. So we'd forgotten to pack that. So I picked that up and I looked at it. At 4 years old, I knew about the clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds. I knew all the suits. I knew the values. So I held that card and I asked my grandfather, Dada is what I called him, what card am I holding? And he happened to say the six of clubs. And I was holding the six of clubs. So it wasn't a trick, but it was just something that happened, which was like a magical moment. So in my head, that expression that my granddad had, and the expression that I had of having no idea how that worked, was my first sort of exposure into magic without really knowing that it's magic. Come to when I was 11, this is the year 2002. I'd gone to a summer camp in this place called Tirthan, and I met a magician there. He taught me three tricks. One of them was where you make a coin disappear. One of them was where somebody picks a card and you figure out which card it is. And the third one was one where you use an accomplice and so on, not something that I'm still into. So those were the three tricks that he taught me. I did those for 2 years every single day till everyone knew how they were done. And then the final, the final sort of exposure into magic was when I was flipping through channels and I saw David Blaine.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him do changing an ace of hearts into a queen of spades. I remember him doing that, and that is what really got me into magic after that, because I looked up online. I wanted to know how to change that card, and that silly little move took me 3 months to learn. And then from there, I just got obsessed, because to be able to figure out how that trick was done, I reached the 30th page of Google search results to figure out how that's done, clicking every link on my way through and learning all the silly little tricks that happened. And by the time I learned that trick, I think by then I was a magician.
Wow, amazing. That's great. So, like, I've heard you talk a lot about your grandfather. Has he been an
Yeah.
inspirational force in your life?
He has a really big inspiration in my life, because I think he always wanted me to do something which was out of the ordinary,
Mm-hmm.
if not magic. He wanted me to be a performance artist of some kind. When I was 3.5, there was this really shitty Akshay Kumar movie called Mora that came out, which had an even shittier song called Tu Cheez Badiya Mast Mast, in which he wore these massive earrings. And my grandfather used to make me wear curtain rods on my ears to have earrings and make me wear those ugly shades that he was wearing in there. And he used to make me dance on that song. And I used to, in that song, Akshay Kumar jumps off the stage. So for me, the stage was my granddad's bed, and I used to jump off it, pretending to be Akshay Kumar, which I think is the worst sort of thing I've ever done in my life. But yeah, that was his way of getting me into some kind of performance arts. He got me a keyboard when I was about 5. So I started learning how to play the keyboard. I still play a little bit of it. So he
Yes.
always, I think, at some level, wanted me to perform. Uh, and magic was one thing that he encouraged a lot. Even if he knew in the initial years how the trick was working,
Hmm.
he always used to applaud the moment the trick ended. He always used to encourage me. He never got to see a show because he died before I ever did a show. But yeah, I think he's the one who sort of really pushed me into performance arts.
That's great. I'm sorry for your granddad's loss because I actually lost my granddad a couple of months ago,
Oh, okay,
and
I'm so
he was
sorry.
actually a creative. He was a poet, and he has books and books that he's published.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Unfortunately, like he couldn't follow his dream in his younger years because his dad was like one of those engineering karna hai and all that. But that's great. So I think we should start with where I think, in my opinion, Karan Singh Magic was formed. Maybe not the term itself, but I mean, I just saw this video today. The first time that you met Darren Brown.
Hmm.
And Darren Brown is an amazing, amazing mentalist, illusionist. He is phenomenal. Like, I have never seen someone command the stage the way he does. And I saw you perform for him.
Yeah.
So, would you want to narrate that instance for everyone who's seen that or hasn't seen that video? Or you want to talk
So
about what you were thinking when that happened?
I was blank. I don't think I was thinking anything, but I can tell you how it happened. So this was 17th of February 2012. I still remember the date. And in August of 2011, so 6 months before the show, I booked tickets for it. And I tweeted out to him that I'm coming from India, please meet me.
Mm-hmm.
He never got back. I tweeted again, I'm coming from India, please meet me. I must have tweeted at least 700 times, pretty much 5 times a day for 6 months, that I'm coming from India, please meet me, please meet me. I never got a response. On the day of the show, I tried my luck again. I said, I'm sitting in this seat, this theater, I'm coming for the show, please meet me. I never got a response. But there was his manager, a guy named Coops, who replied saying that after the show, please wait around at the stage door. Darren would love to meet you. I'm like, holy shit, that just happened. I saw the show, and in my head, I knew that I wanted to do a trick for him after the show if I ever get to meet him. I saw the show, and I'd seen all of Darren Brown at least 30 times before I went for the show because I think he completely changed my perception of magic. He completely changed everything that magic meant to me. And then I went for the show, and everything that I'd seen before that felt like a joke because the show was so fantastic. Nothing, the experience of seeing him live,
Definitely.
it can never translate into a video. And because the live show is about 3 hours long, and in the video you get to see about 1 hour 10 minutes, 1 hour 15 minutes.
Oh, I was not aware of that.
Yes, it's a 3 hour show with a 25-minute interval. So they cut it short for the TV edit. So I saw the show. This was a show called Svengali, I saw. And I went insane seeing that show. So after the show, when I met him, in my head was chaos because everything I knew about magic had initially already been changed by Darren. But then after that show, it changed all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So I met him. There were about 5, 6 other people as well who were meeting him. He met them. He was signing things for them. He met me. He started signing program notes for that show. And then he asked me, "What do you do?" I told him I've come from India all the way just for the show. He's like, "No, you've got to be kidding." When I started telling him that I know I've genuinely come from India, I told him that back then I just started performing for a living. This I was doing birthday parties and a few corporate shows here and there. So I told them I do that. And then somewhere out of the blue, I got the courage that I said, "Would you like to see a trick?" And he got all excited. He's like, "Yeah, sure. Nobody ever shows me a magic." I'm like, "Sure." So I did a trick, which was a very silly trick looking back, but I did it, and it went wrong. The first time I did it, it goes wrong. I'm standing there trying to figure out the card, and it's way off. And he's just looking at me, thinking, "Dude, the hell are you doing right now?" And once it went wrong, I expected him to move on and start meeting other people. But he said, "Do you want to try again?" And more than the magic, that meant more to me than anything else, because Darren Brown, for me, that man's God. And he's asking me, do you want to try that trick again? That meant so much to me. That told me so much about that person outside of magic as well, of how nice he was. So I showed him that trick again, and I nailed it the second time. And he was kind enough to say on video that I have no idea how you did that. I'm pretty sure he was lying. But that completely changed my life, because that gave me so much confidence that it's okay to fail. Even if I fail, Darren Brown is asking me if I want to do it again. Then it's okay. I can go out and do shows, and I can fail on stage as well. And that really gave me confidence to be able to start doing live shows. So yeah, that was Darren Brown.
Love it. That was amazing. So, I mean, yeah, Darren genuinely seems like a nice guy.
He is. He's the best, and his shows. I mean, they're just so life changing. Some of his. He's the only performer who's uh, doing tricks at the end of the day, but doing them in a way that he's fooling magicians. He's entertaining magicians. He's entertaining the general public. They're laughing. They're crying. They're gasping. There's everything packed into one show, which is like a dream.
Lovely, amazing, dude. Great, great, great. Now because you've talked about Darren, I think it serves as a good segue. When I was researching you online to get as many details as I can for this podcast, I stumbled I stumbled upon this. I'm not sure if you still use it. I saw your blogspot page.
Yeah.
So it had no posts on it, but it had like I guess it was your old description because it didn't say psychological illusionist or mentalist.
Yeah, what did it say?
It said magician, thought reader, this,
Yeah.
that. What struck out to me was you meant, and I think you still mentioned this. You wrote hypnotist as the second descriptor.
Yeah.
And because Darren is in fact like one of the best stage hypnotists I've ever seen, because he truly understands he's not just good at it, he understands the way the stuff should be framed and staged. It shouldn't
course.
just be about making fun of someone or just about like you saw Svengali, you know damn well what I'm talking about. Like,
Of course I do, yeah.
so what are your thoughts on hypnosis? Because how much have you delved into it? Have you ever done a gig or two, or have you ever done anything like genuinely with hypnosis?
Of course, I think the show that you saw of mine was more on the lines of a comedy mixed with magic show. There was a comedian performing
Yeah,
with
we'll
me.
touch on that as well.
Yeah, but if I'm doing solo shows, so in December, which is about 5-6 months from now, 4 months from now, I'm doing his large scale show, which is a one man show. That always has a little bit which has hypnosis in it. So all my solo shows always have at least a 10-minute slot of hypnosis. Even if I'm doing a corporate show, there'll be a 10-minute hypnosis segment. So I always keep it. Sometimes it'll be pseudo hypnosis, but sometimes it'll be actual hypnosis where I'm genuinely trying certain things. But I think for me, especially in a country like India, hypnosis is a subject which is kind of touchy, because some people go into the aspect of religion the moment you start talking about hypnosis. So it's a sensitive topic. You have to tread very, very carefully when you go to hypnosis. Also, people start seeing you as someone who can solve problems just because you can hypnotize them. Which people are meeting me after the shows, they're asking me, "Oh, can you solve this life problem, that life problem?"
Yeah.
Just because they're watching me hypnotize someone. I don't think it's the best time to be a hypnotist in India, which is why I'm trying to do tiny, tiny segments within shows, and sometimes not even calling it hypnosis. Without calling it hypnosis, trying to do it in a certain way that looks like hypnosis and maybe it isn't. So it leaves it up to the audience if they want to call it hypnosis. So I think for me, it is a very, very interesting topic, but I think it's not something that people are quite ready for now. Maybe 5 or 6 years from now, when there are a lot of magicians, a lot of mentalists, and people are open to the idea of hypnosis as entertainment and taking it separately from religion and taking it separately from the idea of healing and all of that. It just has to be, at the end of the day, just entertainment. Because as much as hypnosis I might know, I still wouldn't want to go into the area of trying to heal someone with hypnosis.
Definitely, I understand that. So, one of the reasons I actually brought that up is because you may not have heard of this performer, because he used to be amazing, phenomenal, but in the recent years his performance has sort of dwindled. Like he stopped performing as much, and he's
Okay.
focused on other things. But Poshak's actually met this guy. His name is Vihan Singh. And
Okay.
around 2 years ago, me and him were hired for a gig at a corporate. It was a corporate show,
Okay.
and we had around 2 months to script it, which is a massive amount of time for
Yeah.
a 1 hour corporate show. And he had recently been to the US because for the past year he'd been trying to learn hypnosis. And in the end, he believed, you know what, screw it, I'll just go to the source, I'll go to the person which I know is amazing at it, and I'll learn from
Uh,
that guy. And he did. And we were trying to incorporate bits of hypnosis in this show.
uh,
But in the middle, we completely abandoned that idea because he said, why are we doing this? Why don't we just do a full 1.5 hour hypnosis show? Which sounded amazing, but I was shit scared because I had never done it before.
uh,
But so yeah, this guy he spent, because it was like a vacation time around. He spent 2 months every single day going out with me, forcing me to try to hypnotize his friends or people I don't know, and genuinely, it failed like 100. Not over exaggerating, it failed 112, 13 times
uh,
before one person started sort of going along with. I don't even know if they were acting over, but that gave me the confidence to move on. And the reason I introduced this is because I wanted to ask you, what, how would you define hypnosis to a layman?
how would I define hypnosis to a layman? I think it would be me using language based techniques to sort of influence someone.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I would never call it going into a hypnotic state where you can't see something or you're into a zone where you're thinking of random things and so on. I
Yeah.
won't do that. I would only say that it's just me using language and you're following a command. Sometimes you're just following it because you're on stage and there are about 500 people looking at you and you just want to get off stage as soon as you can.
Yep.
Sometimes you're following a command without even realizing why you're following it. And that's where it becomes interesting for the performer as well. Because there's this weird sort of blurred line within hypnosis without going into method too much. That even the performer doesn't know if the person he's hypnotizing is hypnotized or not. Are they just playing along? Are they genuinely hypnotized? Are they just following commands because they want to get off stage? So for me, if I had to define hypnosis, it'll just be me using verbal techniques to influence someone to do certain things to make the show more entertaining. That'll be the crux of it. But what happened to you? I mean, when you did you end up doing that show,
Oh
hypnosis?
yeah, 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 yeah.
You did?
We spent. Oh, dude, I worked like he pushed me so much, but it was so worth it because at the end, we performed a 1.5 hour hypnosis show, and it was a success. I think that's one of the best shows I've ever done because first of all, it was scary for me as well, going in front
Of
of a
course.
corporate audience and every single person that's older than me. No one's anywhere near my age. I'm 17 years old at the time,
Hmm.
and it's insane. Like it's scary, but
It
when
is.
it works,
It's the best thing there is. When it works, you're pretty much God the moment it works. But if it doesn't work and you're on stage and you have no idea where to go from there, that's where the scripting becomes important because you have to have a script. For them, it's a 90-minute show, like you said, but for you in your head, let's say you're doing 5 bits of hypnosis, it's a 7.5 hour show because you have a backup for everything. So I think, yeah, that's what's interesting because on stage, if you fail with hypnosis, there's so much other things that you need to delve into.
yeah, and I'm completely agree with the fact that hypnosis is very touchy in India
Hmm.
because I never thought knew like I've heard instances of this happening with people, but I never really believed it fully until it happened to me when I met even magicians, other magicians. One of these guys I hadn't met in months asked me, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, I've been working on hypnosis for the past 7 8 months." The entire thing, the entire the conversation changed. He
Yeah.
wasn't like he
I
wasn't
think
as
at
relaxed
some level,
anymore.
people start taking you more seriously as well.
Hmm.
But at some level, there is that thing of really is that something that you can do? Is that something that you should be doing if you can do
Yes,
it? So there is this sort of weird area with emphasis.
and actually, because I want to ask you a question regarding this. So, a couple of months ago, I was performing just street hypnosis, which is a lot of like channeling my inner Anthony Jacquin, going
Uh,
out, performing for a couple of guys, and it was nighttime, 7:38 or something. This woman walks up to me when she sees me hypnotizing a guy, taps on my shoulder, and I turn around. Well, this we were sitting down, so I could still hold on to the like I could still support the guy without him falling
uh,
off. And I was talking, and she whispers, she's like, you have to get him out too. I'm a hypnotherapist. I know about all of this, and you're a kid, and you shouldn't be. But anyway, so I turned around and I said, "Oh, it's all right. I've been doing this for a while. I'm informed about this, and this is just for entertainment. It's nothing therapeutic." And And I was really excited because I was like, wow, I finally get to talk to someone about this after a long time, a non-performer especially.
Uh-huh.
But when I went up to her after I was done with my little street show, whatever I was doing, I found out, I don't know if there's a lighter way to put it, that she was a complete fraud. She was the sort of person who used palm readings and crystal healing. And she's telling me, "Oh, I'm taking actually a crystal a crystal healing trip to Egypt with 50 people, and they're paying me this much." And that really stung. Like that moment stung when I'm like, "Wow!" Like, so
Yeah, because I think in India, it's very easy to con people with that. I mean, I could stop doing corporate shows today and start dressing up as a Baba tomorrow and telling people that I can read your mind and figure out things about you. I've had people call me and say, "Oh, I met somebody on the street who told me my entire life story,"
yeah,
when all they are using are Barnum statements and code reading and so on. So all of that is something that I know we don't want to go into much, but it is something that did happen and does happen in India. So it is a taboo subject at some levels. I understand why that stung you, and as a magician, I can understand that more than other people. But yeah, it is the harsh, bitter truth of it.
yeah, it is. So let's segue into this right now. One of the questions that we have is because recently with your Instagram stories. First of
Uh-huh.
all, congratulations on Monday Night Magic. It's doing quite
Thank you.
well.
Yeah, thank you so
Um,
much.
and I'll link you in the description. Please go check him out. One thing, your stories for the past couple of, I think I noticed this around a month ago. You started uploading a lot of stories about religion, and you
Yeah.
started asking people's thoughts about what they identify as, whether they're a theist, an atheist, a believer, a non-believer, a deist, whatever they are. So, you did all this, and I could sort of infer what your beliefs on religion might have been. But
Hmm.
completely candidly, because this again is only going to be seen by mostly magicians and performers,
Uh-huh.
what are your views on religion?
I think it's the biggest scam there is. It is the easiest way to con people. It is the easiest way to get people to believe in something and blame all their troubles on something else. Not just, I think any kind of organized religion is the biggest con there is, bigger than palm reading and crystal reading and tarot cards. Because I think it it gets the other person into a feeling that they are not at fault and it's something else that is controlling something, and it's a higher power, and they've built a society which you're a part of. So I think if something goes wrong in their life, they have something else to attach the blame to, which is probably the worst thing one can do. I'm atheist, and I'm a full blown atheist at that. I know our views differ slightly on it, but for me, I'm completely atheist. I'm a complete non believer in God, and I know that religion's probably the worst thing. For me, I was a believer in God till I started going to college. I was in a college which was a Sikh college, and I'm a Sikh myself, and it was compulsory to wear a turban and move in. And if you weren't wearing a turban, you would be in order by some did enter it, you'd be bullied beyond belief just because you were not following the religion that you were a part of.
Wow,
And not
that's
just from the students, from the teachers, from the principals, everybody.
wow, that's
So
all.
that, yeah, was pathetic. So it just made me read up more on religion, try to figure out why those people are talking to me like that, try to figure out if I am wrong somewhere. And I realized that it isn't. And in India specifically, again, because of religion, there's so much negativity on an everyday basis. The Hindus fighting the Muslims fighting the Sikhs fighting the South Indians. It's always there, inevitably. Everyone's fighting each other in the name of religion. Like, what is the point of that? I mean, because I think it's so dumb that you can associate yourself with something. That's probably the biggest con there is in India today. The biggest problem starts from 1992, where the Babri Masjid was demolished over
Yes,
religion.
yes.
And because of that, there was so many riots. There were terror attacks. Till date, the two ruling governments in India are fighting over that. It's been 26 years. And it's all built on the back of religion, which I think is pathetic.
You warm my heart when you say that. So I did respond to your story, and so like I think I should actually explain it. I think I told you that I'm a deist, a Diest.
Yes.
which is a term I actually learned that exists in Richard Dawkins' book The God Delusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be a big believer, like up to a point where I still wear a kada, like
Mm-hmm.
not for religious purposes anymore, but it's like I've been wearing it for 17, almost 18 years. When
So
it's
you're
not
used to it.
there, it sort of feels like something's missing. But
Uh-huh.
I don't attribute this to anything. But so I used to be a huge believer. Like I used to. My family's also Sikh actually,
Oh,
and
okay.
I used to follow Sikhism,
Uh-huh.
and I used to be a huge believer. I used to completely devote myself, and I used to believe in prayers and respect and all of that stuff. But I think in the last couple of years, I think 4 years or something, when the first seed of doubt started festering in my head, and I think the biggest thing that turned me away is that when you try to question it, when you just ask someone why, you get completely railed upon
Yeah, instead
just
of
for
getting a logical
questioning
reply, you're belittled.
completely. And that just started. And then I studied religious scriptures, some of them I dwelled deeply into their meanings, and that's when I completely realized, wow, this is the biggest con of humanity.
It is by far.
But I understand a believer's perspective because of how recently I came out of this phase. 4 years is not that long a time. I can understand a believer's perspective. It took me a year to start saying, okay, I don't believe in God as a figure. Because every time I would say that earlier, for some reason in my own mind, I would convince myself, oh, no, no, this is wrong. I can't say this. But I can and I should. We should be able to question these things. And especially with the Kamarias and all those things happening in our country right now, religion is a force of evil.
It is. It's the biggest force of evil there is.
And so a deist, and I think it just fits me logically. Richard Dawkins explains it really well. He says that a deist is essentially a sexed up atheist. He's an atheist who doesn't want to completely fall over to that side.
Uh-huh.
And a deist basically says that God is just another metaphor for all the scientific processes like gravity
Mm.
and all these forces around us, quantum, like everything. So again, so I completely agree with you, though I'm not completely on your side of the camp yet. I may be in 1 or 2 years, who knows?
For
So
me, it took. For me, it was actually quite sudden. I started reading, and within a month, I was a full blown atheist. I was abusing God left, right, and center so much so that people stopped having me in their social circles because they thought there's something wrong with me. And it reached a point where I thought that after a while I realized, yes, if somebody has a belief, it's none of my job to go and question it, just like it's none of their job to come and question mine. So I think if you're somebody who believes in a religion or believes in a god, as long as you're not causing harm to anybody, great, follow it. It's not my prerogative to come and question you on that. But if I don't want to follow a religion and I don't want to follow a god, you're nobody to come to me and tell me that, oh, you must do it because of any kind of reasons.
great, and completely agree with that. And amazing. Like I don't know what to say. Like
In fact,
better.
I don't know if you want to know. There's a little bit of a tangent that I can go on here. I don't know if I'm sure you know. Every now and then there are a few people who will ring your doorbells and ask for money for organizing some kind of a religious concert, for the lack of a better word. There's one day there were these, I think 4 or 5 years ago, which is when my grandmother was still around. These people walk in, they ring the doorbell, and my grandmother opens, and I'm sitting in my room. I wasn't really paying attention. And once the doorbell rings, it's about a 10-second thing. You figure out who's there. You either welcome them in or you shut the door. About 2, 3 minutes later, I start hearing voices in my corridor. So I come around to see what's happening. There are four, five, six, and they've taken my sort of grandmother in because what they're saying is, oh, we've been given powers by Guru Nanak Dev Ji or some Guru Granth Sahib or whatever, and based on that, we can figure out things about your life. They did a trick where they figured out my brother's name, and my grandmother was shocked how they did that. And they said, oh, this is because we have powers given by God, and therefore you must pay us XYZ amount of money so that we can organize whatever they wanted to organize. And the basic problem there is I walk there and I ask them to, okay, if you can do that, I can do the same thing because I'm a mentalist and I'm a mind reader. I did a trick on them where I figured out their dad's name. And I say to them, I have no powers in God. I don't even believe in your God. I don't believe in any kind of God. I'm doing this because I can entertain you. And they got offended because I did it the exact same way they had done it without claiming that God has given me any sort of powers. And they got
Amazing.
offended. They told my grandmother that you have given a weird sort of upbringing to your grandson. Instead of trying to accept that they were trying to con us, when I tried to, without conning them, do the same thing on them, they chose to belittle me and my grandma, which I think lies the biggest problem in religion. You can't question it.
Amazing. Yeah, you and I messaged you once about this. That we have arguments about religion in my school right now, and I think I'm lucky enough to be in a place where people are still open to the discussion. But a lot of places, like if I were to go back to my hometown, I'm from Chandigarh.
Uh-huh.
In front of my family, I probably could not talk about this.
Yeah. Instead of, except for my immediate family, I don't talk about it to anybody in my family. I'll upload it on social media
Yeah,
so they can read it if they have to. But then what I realized was same thing. I was in a closed sort of environment and I'm talking about it and people were accepting it. Not until did I start posting about it on social media did I realize that
but you
there are
got death.
scores and scores of people who disagree with me. I got death
You got
threats
death threats. I
just
saw
because
those.
I
It's
disagreed with
disgusting.
someone.
Like the when you uploaded the Kanvariyas post
Yeah,
where so
yeah.
basically this group of religious people, flipped over a car
Yeah.
just mass
Just because they
argument.
could. Yeah.
Just because they could,
And
like, it wasn't that big of a deal. They sort of disturb you, they sort of heck you. Okay, there's a family in that car. And so when you did that, I saw the kind of messages you got, and a lot of them probably too colorful for me to say over here. I mean, it's okay if I do, but still, like, someone talked about Congress ka, like the thing about Congress and unhone Sikhon ka. It's just horrible, dude. Like,
it's
I'm
pathetic. I mean,
I am genuinely currently our country is ruled upon by a group that rose out of the RSS,
yeah.
and that's insane.
The prime minister, people have gone to his face and called him a mass murderer. And that guy is our prime minister. The Supreme Court called him a modern day Nero who would turn away in the sight of women and children being murdered. The Supreme Court called him that, and he's the prime minister. I have no idea how that happens. All in the name of religion.
Again, so I think that's a great place to put us to make the
Put a
first
stop on
cut.
that, yeah. Before we get more death threats.
Yeah, because actually,
That's brilliant.
and anyway, so let's move into the second bit of this podcast. This is going to be more on magic theory.
Okay.
This is the segment that I have decided to call Philosophies Without Bullshit.
Love the name.
Thank you. It was actually given by Malay Goswami. He attended
Okay.
your show. He gave a different name. I sort of altered it into this. But anyway, let's begin with the first question. Because I have seen you, I consider you to be somewhat of a Peter Turner, a student of Peter's, let's say that, because
Uh-huh.
you've interacted with him and you've obviously seen his downloads and seen his materials, and I'm sure you've consulted your own like routines and performance with him.
Uh-huh.
But what is your philosophy on where mentalism seems to be going to? So, like, if you were to turn 10 years back in time, everything was in billets. Everything was in
Yeah.
either billets or electronics or some that Peter and Fraser and these guys really revolutionized it, and Kent and Nepper, and turned it to just in your head, just propless. So,
Yeah.
what is your philosophy on propless? Where do you think mentalism is going?
Philosophy on propless or mentalism as a whole? Because
Let's
I think they're
start
two
with
different
philosophy
things.
on propless. Let's start with that.
I think it's a fantastic area to be in. I think a lot of propless is something that I do in my shows now. You haven't seen Wuja there, have you?
I had exams.
You had exams. So over there, I do a bit where I figure out someone's debit card number, first 8 digits, and that's completely propless. They're just thinking of it.
Wow.
Nothing's ever written down. Nothing's ever typed in. It's just in their mind. And I do that in my live shows now where I figure those numbers out. So for me, propless is something that's fantastic, but you have to know when to stop. You have to know when to start as well. You have to pick your moments to do propless. I don't think you can go out and do an entire show completely propless. I don't think you can do that. You won't do an entire show with just a riffle force. You won't do an entire show just with dual reality. You won't do an entire show with just one method. So I don't think you should do an entire show with propless. If you're doing a 90-minute show, have like a 10-minute thing where that's like a 10-minute thing that I used to do hypnosis. You can have a 10-minute thing which is completely propless. Because what that does, if you use different sort of methods for one thing, essentially we're revealing private information that people are thinking of. So if you're doing different methods, by the end of it, people are just dead to it. They have no idea how a particular thing happened. They have no idea how to backtrack it. They come up with these wild, insane stories because you've confused them so much amongst the theories. So I think propless is fantastic for that. Because that 10-minute piece that you're doing in your show, you really hammer it in that it's never written down anywhere. It's never typed in anywhere. This is just in your mind. And it is. And once that's established, people go home saying that, oh, he figured out information about people that was never written down anywhere. He figured out my first crush's name. It was never written down anywhere, and so on and so forth. But that's a false memory that's been created in their head.
Yes, I was going to talk about that.
So I think propless is fantastic for that. You add a little bit in your show which will drive them nuts, which you are very 100% sure will work. So something like Peter Turner's work of figuring out someone's date of birth. That's something that is fantastic. That's something that I've gotten down. I've added my own subtleties to it. I've added my own ideas to it. I think I've actually made it easier than Peter's. And I take less of a process to figure it out.
So we can name products. That's okay because again, it's going out to magicians
Oh,
only.
so if you look at Isabella
Yeah,
Star,
yeah. So which version do you use? Do you use the latest version or the
so yeah, the
second
latest
version?
one. So I think Peter
Yes, so
tipped
do
the
I.
idea of Isabella Star 3 to me about 7-8 months before it came out. I met him in London and he was performing it, and I asked him how it's done. And I knew about Isabella Star 1 by then. Then he tipped the entire method to me before the book came out.
Wow.
Then he shipped the book to me as well. But I started applying 3 where I figured out the star sign, figured out the name, and so on. I just changed it slightly. So I have a method where I figure out the date first. So I know the date, but they don't know that I know the date. So then I go into this routine of figuring out the star sign without actually using an anagram, if I can say that.
Yeah.
So I do all of that, and I figure out what someone's thinking of based on this new method that I've come up with. But the inspiration, if it comes from Peter's Isabella Star, most of my work, even if I'm using a method that's publicly available, I will always try to make a few changes to it and add my own idea to
I
it. I will.
noticed that.
Yeah, I try to do that. Then it becomes more unique. If nothing else, I'll make an entire story which is unique to me. Sometimes I'll borrow lines from
Yes.
Darren and so on.
I was actually okay. Continue.
So yeah, I think for me, propless is something that you should definitely use. You should know what's working for you,
Yeah. Yep.
and you should just use that bit. Don't go crazy doing propless after propless after propless because then you're just setting yourself up for failure. Because it's no, go on.
Oh yeah, I think the only way you can do like a full propless show, and I mean I don't even know if this should be considered fully propless, is if you're amazing at gallery readings and you can pull off like a Q&A show like Luke Jermay does.
Yeah,
Or like
well,
even
that's what
Darren-
I'm planning on doing in December.
Ah, God.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come up for every single show, but once my board exams are done, dude,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
they completely suck everything out of you.
Yeah, so I think, you should. I mean, the rest of the show, even if you're using props, the best thing is the way you perform it. You have to make them believe that you haven't used any props. You have to make them believe that it's as fair yet. I've done a 90-minute show, which is a show called Dibuk, which I think is the best show I've ever done in my life. The entire 90 minutes, the only method I used was a riffle force. I used nothing else for 90 minutes. And magicians came out fooled because they forgot that there were cards picked. They forgot that there was something picked. Poshak said to me that people forget that people were picking things or people were writing things. People just thought that they're thinking of things and I'm revealing them. So I think a lot of it is based on just the performance aspect of it. Even if you're doing propless or you're using a prop. At the end of the day, it depends on how you can sell the idea.
Amazing. So with that, like I think because you talked a lot about mentalism performance and performing in terms of shows and all,
Uh-huh.
how did you get like what would you recommend someone who wants to get more exposure, who wants to be in a place where they can, like, not even like, okay, maybe quit their day job, or if they're somewhere in college or something, they just want to start performing after college. What do you think is the right way of going about, in a way that, how do I state this, that you can make a stable enough income? Now, I'm not expecting you to become rich,
Uh-huh.
like, but like, not you, but like someone performing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will. It's okay. but but up to a point where they can live a comfortable life, like they can pay rent without fearing that they'll have to starve for the next 3 days.
I think you have to just believe in yourself. As cliched as that is, if you love something enough, there is no reason that you can't make a living doing it. For me, when I was in college, I used to go to Delhi University
Hmm.
for 1 year. So I did first year twice because I had no attendance the first time around. I had 1.2% attendance. But I went to Delhi University every single day. I reached college. I didn't enter my own college. I ended up going to every single college in Delhi University and North Campus. And I went into the theatre societies and I performed for people there. And that gave me confidence of performing for people. And then those theatre societies started booking me for their theatre fests. So that's where I started earning my first paychecks. At the same time, I was performing at birthday parties, 1 year old, 2 year old birthday parties, doing close up magic. I was getting paid next to nothing. I was getting paid 1,000 rupees for 5 hours of work. And I thought, back then, I thought I'm making a fortune. But I started doing that. And then from there, I kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it. Then companies started booking me. There came a time when I had no idea how much to sell myself for, as horrible as that sounds. If somebody asks me how much do you charge, I had no idea what to say. But the best thing is that if you keep at it, if you don't, I mean, if you want to make a living out of it, you have to do shit work. It's inevitable. If you have to do 10 shows, there'll be only 3 shows which you'll truly enjoy. But to get those 3 shows, you have to do the 7 shit shows. You have to do a birthday party. You have to do a wedding. You have to do a corporate gig which sucks the soul out of you. But you have to do those. Then over time, you reach a point where you can tell people, even if you're doing a corporate show, or a birthday party, or a wedding, I still do corporate shows are still my main source of living. So I make it a point to tell them that this is how the seating should be, this is how the stage should be. This is the requirement that the bar needs to be shut, there needs to be no food being served, and so on. But that takes time. That takes about 5, 6 years for you to build a reputation enough so that people are listening to you. But I think those 5, 6 years, do whatever work comes your way. Don't think that, oh, I want to be Darren Brown, I want to be David Blaine, or I want to be whoever. Just be yourself and do as many shows as you can. Do any show that comes your way. Do it for free. Don't even charge money initially.
Yes, that's.
There are times I still do shows for free because I believe in something. Like right now, I mean, in India, as we speak, there's this horrible flooding happening in Kerala.
Mhm.
So I'm doing 2 or 3 fundraisers starting next week, where obviously people are paying for the tickets, but the entire money goes to the charity.
Amazing.
So in a way, that's a free show. There's nothing in it for me, but it's so important to be able to. You have to any work that comes your way. Do free shows. Do shows for next to no money, and there'll automatically come a time when people will pay whatever you ask them to. I mean, not whatever you ask them to, but what you think is a fit price, and whatever those
Amazing,
people
dude,
sort of agree at.
amazing. So I think that's great advice, because I, for the last year I started this. I joined this NGO, and I do shows for them, as many, wherever they are going, I go and do a show for them.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's for free because it's for charity, but it gives me exposure. Like,
of course.
I think 3 months ago, I think no, 2 months ago, and it hasn't like, something hasn't come out of this yet, but I hope it will. There was a performance. There was this entire, like, holistic show that these guys had set up, and the reason I use this holistic because it had singing, it had dancing, it had
Uh-huh.
everything, at this place called Galeria, which is in Gurgaon.
Of course, yeah.
And we had a much grander show there last year, but this year we had this one day we had to prepare a show, because the MCG, the commissioner of Gurgaon, had asked us, "Oh, come over here and please do like a fundraiser or a spreading awareness bit on, pollution and plastic and all that." So we
Hmm.
were like, "Okay, cool, we've done this sort of stuff." And I get a call at like 10. "Oh, we have to do a show tomorrow. Will you be willing to do something?" And I'm like, "Of course, yes." And the reason I'm saying this is because when I performed there, because we had no time to advertise it, no one showed up. It was just a normal Galeria where like the people were walking around.
Uh,
And I didn't even see like an MCG guy there or something. And it got to the point where, okay, dancers, people who doing plays, they can do their stuff. I need an audience.
of
If there's
course.
no one there, I can't do shit.
Of
And so I
course.
ended up deciding, I changed whatever I was going to do. I added a bit earlier that I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have to end up performing to people who are part of our team. I'm not gonna stooge them because I don't think that then you're a performer anymore. You become more of an actor. But I decided, you know what? Because I have this, let me just pre-show this guy because now I have all the time in the world to do that. And I didn't want to make it complicated. I did like a playing card. He remembers a card, and then out. And I start doing my entire bit. I do it for people who were participating in it, whether they were part of our NGO or not. They were all participants. So it really wasn't anyone from outside. But that ended up after I reached home. I got a message that apparently the MCG was there, and he saw me do that, and they may wanna hire me for a future event of the MCG. And the only reason that came through is because for the past 1.5 2 years, I've been doing free shows all the time.
Of course, and I think that is so important, and that's so true what you just said. One of the best shows that I did, I think, all of last year, probably the best show I did, was in this club called Algebra, which is run by Shoma Chaudhary and Taran Tejpal. They've got speakers like Karan Johar, Shashi Tharoor, and so on. And I was invited to perform. There's no pay for it. But I did that show, and because of that show, because of the kind of audience that I got, I've gotten 8 shows over the
Wow.
last 5 months because of it.
Right
And
place, right
it's
time.
it's been fantastic. I think you need to really get out and do those free shows because they're the ones that get you audiences eventually.
Yes,
It's
yes.
like, I mean, I'm making a YouTube video. I'm not getting paid to upload a YouTube video, but those people are watching my videos and I'm not charging them for it. They're watching it for free. But one of those people watching it might be an event manager who calls me and says, "Oh, we have a show. We have X number of shows," and then they're willing to pay me for that. So I think you have to do as many shows and as many gigs that come your way without thinking twice about it.
Lovely. So that's amazing. And so you talked there about your YouTube channel,
Hmm.
and it's grown.
Yeah, it's
Like
blown up over the last 2 months.
Virat Kohli's video has been like it's been great. It's propelled your YouTube channel a lot. Like I think you had
Yeah.
somewhere around like I think 6 months ago you had like 7 8,000
Six
subscribers or something.
months? No, like 2 months ago I had 5,000.
Yeah, okay. So I didn't want to
Yeah,
say 2 months because I wasn't sure about that. So
yeah,
yeah, 2 months ago you had 5,000 subscribers, and now
yeah.
you have 73,000 if I'm not wrong,
Yeah, I think about
74.
73, 75, something like that. We're
Yeah.
about to hit.
So so the question is like if I don't so you were doing a live stream once on your Instagram,
Yeah.
and a guy called Vihan logged on, the same guy I was talking about,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
who actually told me about it. He's the first guy, one of the first people who actually I'd heard about you in Vespers and that, but he was the guy who was like, oh, there's this guy called Karan Singh,
Uh,
and because he'd been watching you for over 9 years, he's been watching
yeah.
your YouTube channel since then,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
since the days when you used to come on and say, please think of a place and projecting
Yeah.
the
I used
place.
to do that.
Now, you can look at that in hindsight and say, oh god, that was so bad. And I haven't seen that video because you've taken them down. Yeah?
Yeah. They're
They're
not
not there.
private.
They're not there anymore. So, but when I upload YouTube videos, and I've started doing that recently for two reasons. One I can't delve into here because I may tell you that later, but mainly because I want to start pushing stuff out. And it's a very Vaynerchuk ideology. Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm sure you've heard of him somewhere. So he talks about just pushing your content, make the learning curve part of, document your entire journey, like make the learning curve part of what you upload. You don't have to be the best to start. Now, I have started uploading. Around 2 months ago is when I started uploading, and I'm trying to stay as consistent as I can. I think I have 4 videos up right now.
Okay.
I hate every single one of them.
Yeah. I still hate all my videos. The Virat Kohli video, which has got like 3 million views,
Yes.
I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, from a technical perspective and like a presentation, it's okay. It's meh.
Yeah.
Could have been like because I saw you perform live with Papa CJ,
Uh-huh.
even though not your best show. And the reason I'm saying this is because you said that
Yeah.
it was an experimental show, but it still turned
Yeah.
out great. I was exhilarated after that. I was
Thanks.
euphoric, but mainly it's the first time I've ever been in like like any of these places. The only
Uh,
other person I think I had seen was David Copperfield,
Okay.
And I know your thoughts on that guy. So yeah, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, my point was that I am uploading these videos knowing full well that what I do live is so much better.
Yeah.
But I'm uploading this and I know I have to put this forward because it inspires me to, oh, I can't keep doing this, I have to get better and better and better in on
Yeah.
video. How do you get over that hump where you know what you're uploading is you see that YouTube are going, you know, you're excited, but you know it's garbage. But yeah,
I I think you have to. That's a very interesting question, actually, because I think for me, like I said, I hate my videos. I hate all my videos. I've been getting messages like even you said before we started talking that the vlog that you saw, you sort of enjoyed it. I hate it. I hate the vlog. I hate making it. But it's very, very important. I've realized to put out 2 videos a month, and there are multiple reasons for that. One of them is now that I have an audience, I can play to them. I have a subscriber base, so they're looking forward to more videos. So I upload them. I know it's nothing like the live show. So what works in my favor is when they see the video and they're liking the video so much. So when they do come for a live show, they're like, holy shit, this was far better than the video. And they've already loved the video.
yeah,
And I know that the live show will be far better than the video because I know I can pull that off live much, much more.
definitely.
So it'll be sort of like that Darren Brown moment for me when I saw all of Darren's videos and went for a Darren Brown show and I realized how much better it is. So it's the same thing. And at the same time, you have to, it helps you get a lot of work. Social media is something that will get you more work than anything if you can do it right. There are people who are putting out content and not getting any work. I met Julius Dean over the summer, who puts out a lot of content, but he hardly does any live shows. So I think there's a way you need to market yourself on social media as well, but that's a completely different ballgame. So yeah, for me, uploading as much content that gets a lot of live work. For me, 90% of my work comes through social media. My Facebook was, I think my Facebook has about 250,000 close to people. So I think that really helps me getting shows. That's been helping me get shows for the last 6, 7 years. But off late with YouTube, putting in the videos, seeing that graph rise, yes, it is a motivator to put out more videos. I know I can't put out stuff that I do in my live shows because if they see it on video, why would they want to see it live? I know I can't put out the script that I use in a live show in the video
Yes.
because nobody will want to watch it. If it's nobody wants to watch a 7, 8 minute video, I can't put up the build up for the trick, which I think is the most important thing. I can just put out, think of something, is this what you're thinking of? And try to do that in as entertaining a way as possible so that it converts on video, entertains people. So I think my thought on video is yes, just keep doing it because I think it grows you as a performer. It definitely does because you're entering a space of performance which is not something you might do on a day-to-day thing in your live shows, but it's just growing your sort of impact. Do it because it'll help you get shows. Do it because I mean, if you're doing it right, you can earn money off of YouTube as well. So it's just another revenue source as well.
Great. So just keep pushing content out, keep doing it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So the, the thing is though, like a lot of people I've seen upload a lot of material. So yeah, and I completely agree with the fact that live is so much better than video because, and I think
Sure.
one of the reasons for that is that as performers, we're so used to performing live that I think we overestimate what we will be able to do on video. And I don't know if that made sense or not, but when I am performing on video, I often underestimate the amount of time it's going to take, and I often overestimate my skill on video because when I'm watching it back, I'm like, there was this performance that I did. Then this is sort of clear things up. A couple of performances, someone had recorded it, and I didn't know they were recording it. And when I'm looking at that, of course, the videography is not that good, and neither is the sounding because it was completely impromptu. They just started recording it.
Mm-hmm.
But there I can see, I'm like, see, that's me in my natural habitat.
Mm.
But when I am getting a video recorded, if you were to don't look at my YouTube videos because I'd like die of shame or something. But if you were to look at them, there's one where I do with that, those pendulums that you start moving around with your
Mm-hmm.
imagination. It's like 8 minutes long or something.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's a completely different ball game. For you, you're just doing something which you're so used to doing live, but it'll never translate on video. The
Yeah,
show that I spoke about, the book, I can't watch it back on video. It's a shit show on video because it's so boring. But live, it's the best show I've done. Anyone who's seen all my shows, they will swear blind that the book's the best show that I've done. But it's just so bad on video. It's a completely different ballgame. I think Paul Daniels did an entire uh, video on it where he spoke about how TV magic is far different from performing
Yes,
live,
yes, yes, yes.
and you have to know what's going to be entertaining. You have to know when to look into the camera. You have to know the angles properly. I still don't know any of it. I know that it can't be that long, like the Virat Kohli video. I think you've seen me do a similar trick live in that show, and that's far longer. That's a 15-minute trick, but on video that's 2.5 minutes. It's cut short. So you just see I won't even call them the entertaining bits, but you see the bits where I'm picking up on the information.
But yeah, and I think the reason people love those videos is that okay, if you, I and a friend of mine pointed this out, and one day I'm gonna have him guest on this as well because he's one of the most creative thinkers I've seen. He we were both of us were hired for another gig that it's a
Mm.
different guy. It's not behind. We were hired for a gig quite recently, a couple of months back, another corporate show, and I play the guitar. Okay, so I have a guitar in my room right there, and what happened was we were talking about, we were just, again, that's where the philosophies without bullshit idea came from. He was talking about, he was saying that okay, you play the guitar, and I know that you're not an amazing performer, like as a guitarist, like you're not like, you're not gonna go up on stage and start doing it, but you can still entertain people. I said, yeah, to an extent with a guitar I can do that. He said, and how long did it take you to reach this point? I said, okay, I started performing in the sixth grade, and since then I've just been doing it randomly. Like I never really pursued it very seriously as I did mentalism and performance. But so he said, that's the point. That if you were doing something like music or dance or any of these conventional art forms, it takes you a long while to get to a point where you can display it to people, and they will still get some form of entertainment out of it. When you're doing magic or something, it's Franco Pasquale said this. It's scary how easy it is to be an average magician. And the thing is that when people are watching a music performance or a dance or any of these, they have a bar set in their heads because they've seen so much of this before. But when they're seeing something that we do, it's more 98% of the time, it's the first time they're seeing someone do it. The most comparable thing they've seen is one of those birthday magicians with the top hat, and that's nowhere near close to what any of us do. So when they see this, even if we feel it's complete garbage, it's the shittiest thing I've ever done, for them it's like it's life changing for them simply for the fact that they don't have something to compare it with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it transcends. That when they see it on video, and they're like, "Wow, this is amazing," but when they end up seeing you live, specifically, like I have gone through a phase where I hated you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like a couple of years ago, when I saw some of your videos, and I was like, this is so. And I did not realize how great of a performer you were back then until I started doing video a couple
Mm-hmm.
of years ago as well. And I was like, oh, this is
Yeah,
too
I know
different.
I get a lot of slack from a lot of magicians who see my videos and think that I'm shit, and I don't blame them because my videos, I do think they're not that
No,
great,
no, no,
even though
no.
they get
Like
good traction.
I understand that, yeah. But
But
yeah,
even some people who see me live don't like me much, which I kind of fail to understand, as arrogant as that sounds. But I think, yes, what you said is very true. But at the same time, the thing that you said, 98% of the people have never seen this before. And like you said, it's very easy to be an average magician. But what I've been seeing lately, I think there's a lot of average, maybe even bad magic being performed live, and that's ruining it for everybody else.
yeah,
Because, like you said, you play the guitar.
yes.
Let's say you have an off day and you go slightly off tune or you don't play that well.
Hmm.
That won't ruin music for anyone. They'll still go out and watch somebody else play the guitar. You'll
Yes.
never find anybody who says, "Oh, I hate musicians" or "I hate music." But one bad magician, that might ruin the idea of magic for them. They'll go around for the rest of their life saying, "Oh, I hate magicians and I hate magic." They won't give it a second chance. So it's, if any of the magicians, any of the performers that are watching, it is very important. I know in your eyes, you're the best performer there is, but you're probably not. There's always somebody better than you. For me, I know there are tens of thousands of people who are better than me. So you have to keep working at it, and you have to have somebody in your life who's saying no to you. You can't surround yourself with yes men. You can't surround yourself with people who say, oh, you're the best. This trick is the best. The way you read minds is the best. Your videos are the best. You can't have that. There comes a point when you meet somebody who says, oh, sir, this video was the best. And I know it's not the best. And I'm like, okay. People come up to me and say, oh, you're the best performer in India. I'm like, no, I'm not. People come up to me and say, you take it with a pinch of salt now. You have to have someone in your life who's criticizing it. It could be your parents, it could be your girlfriend, boyfriend, it could be your friends around you, anything. Telling you that this is wrong, this is not fun, this is not good. Like my Monday night magic videos, my girlfriend keeps telling me, oh, this is horrible, this one's not good, that one's not good. Because I don't know if you noticed, all my Monday night magic videos are not something that I do live. They're just stuff that I just have lying around at home and I want to make some use of it. So you have to have somebody in your life who tells you, no, this is wrong, that is wrong, because of the average magic that's around right now. And you have to have someone to look up to and take their advice. That could be another magician that you look up to if you're on speaking terms with them. If anyone wants to drop me a message and show me some of their videos, I can be highly critical. A lot of people hate me for that. I go see shows, someone comes and asks me, what did you think of the show? And I'll give them an honest opinion. If I hated it, I'll tell them it was the worst 90 minutes of my life. I'll say it to their face because I think that's better than me saying, oh, no, it was really good.
Yes.
Because they'll go home and then they'll work on it. And maybe they won't meet somebody whose experience of magic is ruined because of that one performance. So I think it's very important to really, really give time. Give at least 6-7 years to your craft before you actually go out and start performing to people. That's what I think.
That's a lovely sentiment, and I think that's a great way to summarize this bit actually. And Peter in his first the monthly masterclass he wrote in 2016, I think in the first one or the second one, so it was either readings or psychological playing card forces, where it opens with an introduction where he's writing from Spain or Germany or wherever, and he writes an entire bit on. So obviously Peter Turner, for those of you who don't know, is heavily tattooed. He's completely covered in tattoos. And he's talking about blowouts, which is essentially if a tattoo artist is drawing on you and they press too deep, like there's a blowout happens, which essentially means under your skin, a bunch of the ink sort of bursts, and then there's this little inconsistency in your skin forever. And he says when someone watches a bad magician, what you're essentially giving them is a blowout. The fact that it happened to his aunt, she saw a magician, and he said that she always hated what Peter did because she would always think of that terrible thing, and she.
I think it was his grandmother, not his aunt.
Oh, okay, it's grandmother.
Yeah.
He said like magic is not good. So yeah, I mean, completely agree with all that. So, let's talk about this. So you've obviously been performing for a very long time. And recently you uploaded like a story on that you're currently sitting in front of a blank Word document preparing a show that you're going to do a year from now.
Yeah.
That's something actually I'm working on as well. I'm working on a show that I want to do at Playground a year from now.
Okay.
And I'm starting to refine aspects of it, but it's going to take a while because again, school and all that, but I really want to devote myself to this as well after school, obviously. But how do you go about scripting a show? Because a lot of performers, and okay, I'm gonna be sensitive in the way I phrase this. I'm not gonna say they're bad, but they're picking up scripts and everything. Like the entire show is someone else's show that they're doing, and it's okay. I understand why you're doing it. But the problem is, and you could completely justify this. I've had people justify. I'm like, yeah, I agree with that logic. The problem is, some of them I've seen are quite influential, and when they do this, people I know, younger magicians who are my age, they sort of start believing that it's okay to do that. I can completely build my show doing what Luke Giome or Peter Turner or Darren Brown has done. And it will be okay, it will be entertaining to an extent, but I have noticed this personally. When I'm telling a story from my life, the impact on the audience is so much greater than when I'm telling a story from like Anthony Jacquin's life, or if I'm telling a story from anyone else's life. So
for me, when you're starting off, you have to copy.
Yes.
There are no two ways about it. You have nobody to look up to, so you have to copy. I quite proudly copied David Blaine when I started.
Yes.
Uh, when I started copying Darren Brown, I think to a point that magicians around me who knew me started calling me Karan Singh Magic because I started copying him so much to a point that I started nodding as well. I had that twitch as well. I started copying him that much. And then slowly you form your own personality, which is why in my previous answer I said give yourself 6 years of performance before you start performing for people. Because it'll take you at least that long to figure out yourself. It'll take you at least that long to gain life experiences, which you can then take and perform shows with. So for me, I still, there will be times when I'll still use somebody's script, maybe a Darren Brown script that I'll
Yes.
pick up on and I'll
You used
use.
the Darren script in that show where you were doing the any card at any number.
Yes, I do that. I think if a script is fantastic, and I spoke to Penn and Teller about this as well, Teller specifically, I spoke to him about it, asking him if it's okay to do that. And he said, if you're doing something where the script is far too good, it's okay to copy it, but put your own personality into it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take their personality as well. Take their words if you have to. Take their trick if you have to. Don't take their words. Or don't take their personality. So, like for example, John Archer, the first person who fooled Penn and Teller, with the something, nothing,
With
and all
the
of that.
envelopes. Yeah, I've seen his performance.
Yeah, so I purchased their trick and I asked Teller if I should come up with my own words and so on. He's like, no way should you come up with your own words because that you shouldn't even come with your own script because that is so perfect that you should rip that off and you should perform it that way. Teller himself said that. He said that is perfect, and if you do it in any other way, you're not doing the trick justice.
Lovely.
So at some level, you can take scripts. You can't do an entire show with somebody else's script. That's the worst thing that you can do. Do a bit somewhere where you can borrow, tell the person that you're doing it. I've tweeted out to Darren. I met Darren this time as well 3-4 months ago, and I told him that I'm doing this. And he was fine with it. I told him that I'm adding my own personality to it, which I like to think that I do. I like to add my own sort of story to it. Of course, I change the names and everything. I do all of that. I think it's more important for you to develop your personality than the tricks and the stories themselves. Once you develop your personality, the stories will come automatically. Once you develop your personality enough, you have enough life experiences to come up with the entire sort of theory of it, come up with the entire story of it, come up with the entire presentation of it. Like, for example, except for the any card, any number, I think everything that I do in my show is the stories are all mine.
Yes,
Definitely. Like password thing that I also do, the entire story is mine.
Completely. I can attest to that because I saw your show with Papa CJ again. That was amazing. I mean, I know I keep saying that, but again, I don't think you'd ever forget the first time you see a show like this.
Of course, no. Come for the December one if you get time. That'll be a great show.
Come for the December one because my boards might be getting preponed. But
the
moment, yeah, and I'm actually glad about that.
Okay. So yeah, for that, I mean, I've been writing the story for as long as I can remember. It's still not complete. I'm still tweaking it. I've booked the date. It's on 15th of December. I've booked the auditorium. I've done all of that. But I'm still tweaking it around. And the interesting thing is, I don't have a single trick right now. I have no idea what I'm doing in the show, but I have the story for it. I have the things that I'm going to say. And the tricks will sort of come around that. Because at the end of the day, why do people talk about David Blaine? Why do people talk about Darren Brown? Why do people talk about any famous magician? Because they're invested into the person and not their tricks. They don't say, I saw a magician who walked on water. Oh, I saw a magician who took a frog out of his mouth. I saw a magician who figured out my ATM pin. They say, I saw Dynamo walk on water.
Yes.
I saw David Blaine take a frog out of a mouth. I saw Darren Brown figure out an ATM pin. It's because they're invested into the personality. And that is far more important than the script. You have to have your own personality. You have to have your own viewpoints. The entire religion aspect that we spoke about, the palm readers that we spoke about, if we add that into the show, that's something we believe in. And if we talk about that, the audience knows that we're coming from a place of knowledge and that's something that we do believe in. Juan Tamariz had these 7 wheels of magic where he spoke about. And one of them was you have to be honest. And that honesty only comes if you truly believe in something. And the only way you'll believe in something if it's your own story. Even though that Darren Brown thing, which I've ripped off and I've told that story, the names that I take, I slightly change the names, but that's a completely true aspect of those two people bullying me, the woman that I liked and the man who bullied me. That's actually happened to me in school. So even if it is borrowed, it is something that I'm adding my own experience to, maybe not through words, but through my actions and my personality. So I think you have to develop your personality far before you have to develop your script and your tricks. That's far more important. Look at other things, not magic. Look at stuff outside of magic. Again, I've spoken to Tyler about this. He said the most important thing for a magician to do is to stop watching magic
Yes.
and start watching other things. Read about religion, read about God if that fascinates you. Like you said, you play the guitar. I play the keyboard, I play the flute. There are things that I've invested into outside of magic. I've studied theater. I like reading about politics, which have been happening around the world. And that adds to my personality. And through there, you can come up with scripts. And through there, you become a better performer. So it is okay to borrow scripts as long as you have your own personality, I think.
Roughly, dude. So that actually brings me to, I think this is like, I'll take two more questions in this segment and then we'll move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
You are okay. You as a performer are very comfortable calling yourself a magician,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I've seen that you always, like even in your live show that you did that I went for, you were calling them for the next trick. Now for this next trick, and you call yourself Karan Singh Magic, right? But my question is that a lot of mentalists, especially, and I think there's this new movement in magic where a lot of people are just trying to classify themselves as mentalists and mind readers, which is amazing. I think it's great, but maybe we're having a lot of people saying it now, but it's okay. Community grows. But my question is that you call them tricks and all of this. Well, a lot of mentalists really try, and I've done this myself, try to stay as far away from magic, not being called a magician,
Mm.
instead being called like a mentalist, which is still an odd thing to say. I understand, like it's a word that people are not familiar with. Actually, just a side note, thanks to you, a lot of people do recognize the term.
Yeah, now they are.
I think I was performing. The first time I heard about you was I was performing somewhere, and I said, "Oh, you do." Someone said, "Oh, this guy is doing magic," and I said, "It's actually." I was polite about it. I'm like, "Oh, that's great, but it's not really magic. What I do is something else." And the moment I used the word mentalism, this girl was like, "Oh yeah, I know about that." And I said, "Oh really? That's interesting." And she said, "Yeah, have you heard of this guy called Karan Singh? Karan Singh." I'm like, "Wow, these." So this is, and a lot of people like. Honestly, 2 years ago when I was performing, I wasn't a complete mentalist. Look, I had just switched over to mentalism exclusively. People would not know what mentalism is. You'd have to really explain it to them. And it would seem it still seems bizarre to them, but at that time it was stranger. I think it's mainly you and a bunch of other performers. Now the people, when I ask them, have you heard of this before? They say, yes, I think I've heard of this. Or I saw someone perform. I think I saw someone guess Virat Kohli's like best friend's name, like his old friend's name. And this stuff happens. It happened to me recently when I was doing street mentalism somewhere. Street mentalism just sounds weird. Anyway, my question was that, which I sort of went on a tangent away from it. You're very open with calling your routines and effects tricks. Well, a lot of performers are not, including myself. I try to stick with I do this based on feelings, and it's just intuition and psychology and hypnosis and all that. What is that a conscious decision to say that, okay, you know what, I'm going to call them magic tricks? It's okay if people think they're magic tricks.
Okay, so let me answer your question with a question. Why do you not call it magic? Why do you stay away from it? Because I think a lot of the newer lot who are saying, oh, I'm not a magician, I'm a mentalist or a psychological illusionist or whatever, they're just doing it because they think it's cool. But they don't have their own sort of beliefs within it. They're doing it because at some point I've done it myself. But why do you do it? Why do you want to stay away from it?
For quite a long while, I was a proud magician. I loved the term. I would perform all the time. I would mix aspects of everything around. The conscious decision only came when I started experimenting with terms I use and how I associate myself. And it was just, maybe it's just my experience that has led me to believe this,
Hmm.
but classifying myself as a mentalist and saying what I do, thank you, Peter, what I do looks very magical, but it's not magic.
Hmm.
Using these things left a better impact on them to the fact that people have come up to me and they genuinely some things because I perform hypnosis as well, a lot of, and Peter's psychological material, a lot of it is genuinely in your head or taking a guess here and there, which
Hmm.
has worked out sometimes. The more you do it, the more it works. But classifying myself as a mentalist, staying away from the traditional magic per se, has helped me the impact. The only reason I perform is because I am hungry, I am greedy for the connection between
Hmm.
a participant and the performer. Because
Hmm.
I genuinely believe no other art form, no other connection can ever, like, it's just unique, the connection that a performer shares with his audience. And for the lack of a better term, it's magical.
Hmm.
And my entire journey, I will do anything it takes to get there and
Hmm.
make that connection stronger and better. And I
Hmm.
found that calling myself a mentalist and not a magician has helped me do that easy, not just easy, it helped me do that in a more meaningful manner.
Hmm.
So it was a very conscious and it wasn't like a sudden, oh, from now on I'm going to be a mentalist. I think when I started doing it, I was still very sad about the fact that if I do it, I can't perform magic because my first love is playing cards and magic. It's amazing. But it was a very conscious decision to switch from that. It took me a while, but eventually, when I got here, I could not turn back. Like I still wish, I still wish I could do Angle Z sometime because when I'm like back and like thinking about those, I'm like, I can't do like red pill anymore, like in the traditional way, or I can't do like cards across or the ambitious
Hmm.
card because it doesn't fit. It won't make
It
sense in
won't
that
fit your
way.
character.
So that's my reasoning for it, and I do understand a lot of people do it to be cool as well.
Huh.
So yeah, that's my answer.
So no, that makes a lot of sense, and I do agree to it at some level. I'll tell you my story, but it's a slightly longer answer. Uh, so about I think 2009, 2010, friend of mine made my Facebook page and called it Karan Singh Magic, and I had no interest in social media. But he made that, and people started joining the page. I had about 500 people overnight, and I thought that's kind of interesting. I never cared about the name of it, and I started putting out content, and people started calling me Karan Singh Magic as opposed to Karan Singh. When
Yeah,
you were introducing me right now, even you said Karan Singh Magic.
I did. Yeah, I did that on purpose because I thought that's
Yeah,
what you've gone by.
yeah, that is my stage name now because that's stuck. That's something that people know me by. A lot of times, I don't know if it's happened to you, but I know that's happened to other performers. If they've seen, they see a trick and they say, "Oh, we've seen this before. Have you seen Karan Singh Magic?" and so on. They don't say Karan Singh themselves; even they say Karan Singh Magic. So it's become a sort of a brand. But the interesting thing that lies here is when they see a video, at some level, within India at least, it's not their idea of magic. So even at some level, even they don't want to call it magic themselves. So they all the messages that I get is the things you do, the ideas you do, the experiments you do. It's never the magic you do. It's always the things you do, the ideas you do, the experiments you put out, or X, Y, Z, whatever. But at the same time, for 5 6 years I did have that phase where I was very vocal of saying, oh, I'm not a magician, I'm a psychological illusionist, even though my name has magic in it, and so on. I'm a psychological illusionist, I'm a mentalist, I'm a mind reader, and so on. Uh, but I realized that no matter, yes, it helps in building that impact, but when people go home and recount the tale, they will say, yes, we saw a mentalist, but say, oh, magician. And it's sort of like saying, let's say you play the guitar and you're playing,
Sorry,
let's say,
Karan.
pop music on the guitar.
Could you repeat your last line? Your audio sort of cut off, and we couldn't catch that. Well, you
Okay.
said that when they go home and recount the tale.
Yeah, so when they go home and recount the tale, yes, at some points they might say, oh, we saw a mentalist. But for the to save them time of explaining to somebody else who they're telling the tale to what a mentalist is, they'll just say, oh, we saw a magician
Oh, okay.
who did this. Even though that's not the reason why I don't mind calling it magic tricks. I'll get to that. So for me, I still on stage, my first line, even the show that you saw, The first line in every show, I put that out on my vlog as well. And my name is Karan Singh Magic. I'm a psychological illusionist. I mix modern magic with traditional psychology. And when you fuse the two, you can give the illusion that you read minds. So that's the phrase that I use. Nowhere is magic tricks put there. But that's also the reason I now do call it magic is because I thought about it. At the end of the day, I was having a discussion with a pretty renowned musician in India about magic and its different genres. And I said there's mentalism, there's street magic, there's hypnosis, there's parlor tricks, there's card tricks, there's coin tricks, and so on. And he said, but all of this comes under magic. I said, yeah. He's like, okay. Then he said, then why don't you call yourself a magician? I said, because I'm a mentalist and I'm a psychological illusionist and so on. He's like, so I'm a Sufi singer. I still call myself a singer. I don't go out and tell people that oh no, this I'm not a singer. I'm a Sufi, or I'm doing pop music. I'm not doing music. I'm just a pop artist.
That's the best answer I've ever heard to that.
At the end of the day, what we are doing is just a genre of magic. It is magic, and if whatever we do, we can't prove that we are reading minds. Let's be real. Let's be as honest as we can. If someone comes up to me after a show and says, "Can you genuinely read minds?" I flat out say, "No, I can't. I can read thoughts, which I genuinely can at certain times. So can you. So can everybody else." And that's an honest answer.
Yes.
But that's a completely honest answer. But I cannot read a mind. That's not something I can scientifically prove. I cannot do that. So it is a trick. It's a silly, 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 silly trick. And if someone is messaging me saying, "Oh, I figured out how this trick is done," for them, it's a trick. For us, we're trying to portray it as, oh, this beautiful little experiment that we've come up with. For them, it's a trick. They'll message you, "This is how the trick is done." And I'll respond saying, it doesn't matter how it's done. I know it's silly, silly, silly. It's some magic trick. Of course, you figure out how it's done. It's a silly trick. You play it 10 times, you see it 10 times, you'll know how it's done. But it's not about that. It's not about how a trick is done. It's not about what you call it. People will go home and call it a magic trick. They'll always do that. So why should we shy away from it? I'm proud of calling it magic. I'm proud of calling it a magic trick. But you have to, of course, do it in a certain way that you're not demeaning yourself, and do it in a way that the other people who go home, they might then explain to somebody that no, it's not necessarily a magic trick. They are then doing your billing for you, instead of you doing it. Instead of you saying, "Oh no, this is not magic, this is X, Y, Z," they are going and telling people, "Oh, what he does is not necessarily magic. He's reading minds, he's reading thoughts, he's picking up on body language, he's picking up on expressions." They'll go and tell people that. So I don't think you should be shy of it, as long as you're doing justice to the art form, as long as you're adding something new to it.
Yep.
I think you should be confident enough to call it a magic trick, because that's what it is at the end of the day. It might be in a genre of mentalism, but mentalism comes under magic.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Like, great. So, let's go over there. So, because you've been performing for so long and you've had countless performances,
Mhm.
would you tell us what is the reaction or the emotions that you're trying to evoke from your audience? Because I know I'm making an assumption, if it's a fair assumption, because you're such a seasoned performer, that it's not about fooling people. It's not at all about whether you know how it's done or whether it's not. It's okay. I have another answer for this, but I think you should go for this. What is the most genuine, beautiful reaction or emotion that you wish to evoke in someone who's just seen you perform?
So, are you talking just about stage or close up as well? Because there might be different answers to that.
Uh, you do most of your work on stage, right, for corporates?
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
take stage.
So, the reaction that I want to evoke, I won't even call it a reaction, I'll call it more of an emotion.
Yes.
Because I'm not really looking for someone to go, "Oh, holy shit, how is that done?" I'm never looking for that.
Please.
Ever. If people are doing that, great. If that's how they want to express that particular emotion, they can do that.
The tada moment.
Yeah, the tada and the anti-tada moment, which Peter talks about. I mean, I won't even go for the anti-tada moment. I might have a tada moment, but even that tada moment at times won't have people going crazy. It'll it'll be an emotion of what did we just see? It has to be, yes, it has to put a smile on their face. That's number one. It has to be a positive experience. It has to be a invoke positive emotions from somebody. That could be out of tears as well. You can evoke a positive emotion by making someone cry as well. So it can be a smile. But as long as it's a positive emotion, that's number one. I have to invoke a positive emotion. If somebody comes to my show and leaves happier than they were when they came in, I think my job's done. That's the most important thing. Secondly, the the thing that I'm looking for is it should make them think, because I think in a way magic is the most intellectual art form there is, because it's the only art form that if you see somebody play a song with the guitar, nobody will try to break it down. Say, well, this is probably this chord first, this chord next. It's only with magic. Oh, maybe he did this, and then maybe because of this he figured this out. So it's a very thought process stimulating art form. I want people to think. I want people to go home and talk about it in a way that not just entertainment. I want them to be entertained while they are there. But once they are out, yes, the entertainment thing stays, but it's a thought process that keeps going. They talk to people about it. That how, if not how something happened, they tell people about what happened, and they start thinking to themselves. Even anyone who's watching a trick, most people in India are watching it to figure out how it's done. Some people are there who just to be entertained. But somebody who's even there just to be entertained, before they go to bed that night, if you figured out the name of their first crush or their date of birth, they will think, fuck, how did that happen? How did he figure that out? They will think that. And it's a thought process stimulating art form. I'm looking for entertaining people and I'm looking to make them think. Those are the two most important things. I am looking for the reaction at times. I am looking for some reaction like, oh, he said, what just happened? But it's not that reaction of, it's not the David Blaine TV show kind of reaction that I'm ever looking for. It it'll be more of silence
Yes.
and then did that just happen? It's that. Sometimes there will be a wow that comes out of it. I think if you're in a show, it's inevitable that you have to have those moments where people are applauding. They're forced to applaud. They're forced to give you a standing ovation. There have to be moments like that. But yeah, it's more important. Number one, entertainment. Number two, make them think. Number three, just stunned silence.
Amazing. So great. And when you were talking about them trying to figure out what the method is,
Hmm.
I've noticed, especially when it's like a close up. It's 2 to 8 to 10 people.
Mm.
When I have this routine that I perform, and to my knowledge, it's original. When I say original, I'm using the term loosely in the sense that yes, I've taken inspiration in aspects, but I've never been like, oh, let me take this trick and this and let me put my take. It's not been like that. It's been out of necessity that I want to do this. Let me
Mm.
see how I can get there. I
Mm.
have this routine that I do, and it's actually like it's in any card at any number routine that goes on for 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes.
Mm.
One routine with a lot of course, with lots of little sprinklings and routines within it. So I've noticed that at the end of something like that, if your audience is engrossed to the point, when you said tears, that reminded me of the best performance I've ever done. It was in 2017, where a woman almost came to tears in front of her husband,
Mm.
and they were looking at each other, and at that moment, I knew I have done what I wanted.
Mm.
This connection, this trifecta between us, this is what I yearn for. And at that moment, when even your audience is not, they're not just looking for the method, okay? At this point, yes, they think of how, okay, how could he have done that and all that. But at this point, I knew fully in like 200% in my heart, I knew that I have gotten them to a point where if they try to question any of the methods, they will have to question the very relationship that they have between them. And I think it's a beautiful metaphorical moment because after that, and I think this bit is okay to tip because it's not really that big a secret. You know that in freeform mentalism, and I think in The Devil in Disguise 1, Peter talks about giving a memento out to your audience where he folds up a
Mm-hmm.
sheet of paper and he says it says nothing in it and he just gives it to them and he says because of the way he frames it, and I'm not going to tip that because it's beautiful, no one's ever going to open it.
Yeah.
And I did the same, but I did actually write something down. In hindsight, I would change it. I would write something, but not what I did. But I
Mm.
wrote it down, and I gave both of them a slip, telling them that please keep this on your person, keep this in your, and all that. That if you ever have these, I'm not gonna again. I'm being very secretive about this, and I apologize. But if you ever feel this something like this and whatever, I'm not gonna dwell there.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at this, but it'll only work once and all that thing. And this
Mm.
guy looked at it, and he went like, "For your sake, I'm never gonna open this in my life." And then he like
Yeah.
slapped his, and I'm like, "Yes, that's what I want to take this."
Yeah, and that's beautiful because I think you create a connection with somebody that goes deeper than the trick. I think it's like I said, it's the only art form that will make people think. It's the only art form that uh, gets people involved in a way that maybe other art forms don't. With comedy, people are laughing. With music, people are enjoying the music. With mentalism or magic or whatever, if you're getting people on stage and reading their thoughts, it's far more personal than anything else. So I think it's yeah, it is something that draws a connection. It is something that invokes a reaction which nothing else will.
Definitely. And I think a performer called Malay Goswami told me this. He says there's three levels to magic or any of our mystery arts. I think that's a good term, umbrella term for mystery arts. Sounds super pretentious, but it works for me. He says there's three levels to it. There's astonishment, which is the easiest to create, which is, oh, what just happened? Let me
Mm.
look. And then they start delving into methods and all.
Mm.
Then he says the second is wonder,
Mm.
which I think you're really good at. Like when I saw your show, like some moments, especially the A can, like
Mm.
astonishment's there, but wonder is there as well. And he
Mm.
says the last phase, which he says is the most difficult thing for a performer. But if you can reach there, it is like a drug. Like you're addicted. He calls it belief.
Mm.
So astonishment, wonder, and belief.
Yeah, no, I know that. That's a nice way to put it. Mm-hmm.
And we're going to move on to more sort of objective questions before rounding everything off with just one special question that I usually keep for the end.
Okay.
And we'll get over there in a sec. So let's go. Okay, Karan. So we've talked about how you structure a show, and we've talked about how long you've been performing for and what you're looking for in an audience.
Mm.
But in your opinion, what is your dream show? Like, I'm not asking you to think of something that's feasible. So I'm not asking you to think of, oh, maybe I want to do a show like Underground, or I want to do a show like Miracle or Sword of Vengeance, which is Ricky J.
Mm.
Nothing like that. I'm saying completely a pipe dream, something that you want to do. Like no method. It can be something as insane as I genuinely want to travel back in time. What is in your mind a dream show?
Well, if I could actually read minds, I'll make everything very, very easy. That'll be brilliant. But if I see, I've had an achievable, attainable dream in my mind. I'll tell you that first, and that's more of just having a show which I can tour around the country 6 months of a year. Uh, I make a show. 1 week I'm doing every day in Delhi. 1 week I'm every day doing Bombay. 1 week every day I'm doing Bangalore, and do that for 6 months. That's the dream that I'm working towards. I have done a couple of tours, but they've all been a maximum month long, not longer than that. But I want to do one which can pan half a year, which will happen eventually, I'm pretty sure. But if I have to come up with a pipe dream, I'd love to have like a nightly show in Vegas if that happens, because I think the kind of audience that you get there is fantastic. Or a nightly show somewhere in London, West End probably would be brilliant. So I think West End over Vegas, West End in London over Vegas any day. Maybe like a nightly show where people are coming and just watching me perform. I don't think that'll ever happen. But yeah, if I have to have a pipe dream, I'd probably be that.
Lovely. So obviously, like every performer's dream, I want to perform in Vegas.
Mm.
But I think my dream city to ever like have a consistent show in, which is super competitive, would be New York. Simply for the fact that, and I think Luke Jeremy states this amazingly well. he doesn't talk about New York there, but he's saying that when he worked in Vegas for 3 years, it was amazing for the first two, and the last one was torture. And he said the reason for this is because Vegas drains you
Yeah, it
simply for the
does.
sort of audience that you get. He says when he's performing in London or when he's touring somewhere in, like, he's performed in New York as well, so he's performing somewhere over there. People have come to his show with the sole purpose to watch him.
Yeah,
But when they're in Vegas,
go
they
ahead,
don't just
have
come
fun.
to your show because they got like a free ticket from their hotel with their laundry bag and they have an hour to kill.
Yeah.
So, you know, so yeah.
So for me, I think it'll be London. Like I said, by the end of it, London over Vegas, because I think the kind of audience. I've done a few shows there. I've done a few corporate shows there. I've done street shows there, with busking and all of that. I've done that. So I think London is my dream city to perform in, where I'm performing every day of the year. Maybe when I'm old and frail, probably I'll do that.
Okay. All right, great. So, um, Karan, like, did you ever? So, as far as I understand, straight after your college, like you didn't complete your college,
I didn't complete
but
college.
the moment, like, when you left it, you quit to be a performer. If I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So I think after my first year, the first time went terribly wrong, and I had to do first year again. My mom thought I'm going to ruin my life because I spent about 10 hours a day playing poker, live poker with a lot of people for real money. I started doing that, and my mom thought I'm going to ruin my life, so she start taking me to her workplace, and I started learning social media there. And while that was happening, I used to go to college every now and then, do the odd show whenever I could. By the time I was in third year, I was doing not enough shows to sustain myself for a long time, but doing enough shows to know that there will come a time very, very soon where I'll be able to sustain myself. So my parents, in fact, still don't know this, that I don't have a degree. So I didn't finish college, and
Wait,
I didn't get my degree, and I started doing shows.
your parents don't know about that?
No, they don't. I mean, I've said this in several interviews, and they think I'm joking. Because yeah, so I mean, I don't have my degree. I do shows. I started doing shows, and the shows kept increasing, and I never ever had to do another job. For me, I think I was very very lucky, that I didn't have to do anything else. I started doing shows. I started getting corporate work. I started getting college shows, and I think I knew how to market myself and get the right shows. Right things happened at the right time. I met the right people. Again, same thing. Going back to the first thing we spoke about, never say no to work. I did any show that came along, and I did that, and I think that really helped. And I dropped out of college because I knew that I'll be able to do enough shows to sustain myself, and
Lovely,
that's been happening year on year. It's been
lovely.
getting the graph is initially it went like this. Now it's steadily sort of going like this. I think this is better than this.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is more temporary.
Yeah, I mean,
This
initially I thought, oh,
seems
this
like
is
it will
brilliant. I'm
come
just going to
down.
keep going like that. But then when you fall, which you inevitably do every single year, it's horrible. So now I've learned, like June, July, August, there are no shows ever. It's been slightly over a month since I did my last show. But I know from the 8th of September to the 29th of September, I have a show every single day. So I know that there comes a time that I will be working. So yeah, it's better to have a graph like that than to have one like that.
Lovely. Yeah, because this, I mean, it just, you know, it's
Yeah,
gonna end. This
it's too
seems
good to
more
be true.
stable.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know if you've heard of this guy or not, but I think, I mean, if you ever get time, because I know you're super busy, this is a book that was like gifted to me, and I'm reading it right now. It really reminds me of sort of performer you are. Have you read this book? It's called
I've read this. Yeah, of course I have.
You have. It's
Of course I have.
phenomenal.
It's a beautiful book. I read this, I think, about 4.5 years ago.
I so this is actually someone else's
I
copy.
have it on the
Yeah.
Kindle as a,
Sorry.
I have it on the Kindle as opposed to a hard copy.
There's an
But yeah, I
interesting
have read
story
this.
about this. Though. So another magician, the Vihan I was talking about, who doesn't perform anymore, he
Uh-huh.
gave this to me. But the weird thing about this particular copy is, like, I don't know if you can see this over Skype. It's really old, and you can like see the
Oh
pages that he
yeah,
faded
yeah.
away and all. The thing is, he doesn't know where this came from. He has no idea.
Really?
It was just in his attic. He has
Oh
no clue where
wow,
it came from. So that's just sort of
wow.
like,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
sort of meant to be.
I really like that thing, and it's a phenomenal book. Like this guy messed up at FISM. He got disqualified
It is.
from
It's
the
a
biggest.
fantastic book.
Yeah, I've actually just reached the point, so don't tell me what
Oh,
happens.
yeah, I won't tell you what happens after
I've
that.
just
Then,
I just read it since like okay, let's not discuss the plot over here for anyone
yeah,
who's going to read this book.
yeah, no, but they all should. Whoever's watching
Yeah,
should
it's
definitely
Fooling
read that
Freely
book.
by Alex Stone. Phenomenal guy. So yeah, the next question was: Have you? Which is one book? Okay, name one book related to magic or mentalism that has completely changed your like life as a performer. And if you want, you can even name one which is not related to any of this. Like you could literally name like Crush It or any one of these, like any other book.
Hmm. Should I just get up for a second and go get it?
Please.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
Yeah.
I think you'd like to see it as well. It's a pretty rare book. So yeah, I'll talk about the non-magic one first.
Okay.
That's pretty cliched. Is this?
Yes.
So I that's what got me into reading. I wasn't somebody who read a lot of books, but I picked up Harry Potter when I was after the third movie came out, after Prisoner of Azkaban. So I was pretty late, in fact, in picking it up. But I did, and that completely changed the course of my life because it got me invested into stories, and it got me invested into something outside of magic for the first time that I was really passionate about, which is telling stories. So a lot of my, in fact, all my shows are story based. So the tricks will have stories. The show entirely will have a story. So I think Harry Potter completely changed that for me, and I think it was Goblet of Fire, which was the first book that I entirely read, which didn't have a storyline, that I knew because still Prisoner of Azkaban, I'd seen the movies.
Ah.
After that, I started reading the books. So the first three, I knew the plot loosely, even though the film sort of changed it. But yeah, Harry Potter completely changed my life. I've read all the books at least 60 times, if not more.
Wow.
I've seen The Cursed Child live. I've had the honor of seeing that live, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, I saw that with Penn, in fact, last year.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, Harry Potter is something that completely changed me. The second book is something that I'd heard about a lot of times. I'd read about it at forums, and I think you might know which book I'm hinting at. And I started looking up on eBay because it was no longer in print. I started looking it up at magic libraries, didn't find it anywhere.
Should I take a guess?
Yeah, go on.
I wrote it down actually. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Is it Pure Effect?
No, it's not. I actually do have Pure Effect. I have Pure Effect. I have Absolute Magic.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Like I really
I have
like
all of
that
them.
book.
I have all those books. I have all
I've
them
read a
signed
bit
as
of
well.
Pure Effect, and wow, I read the bit where the introduction one.
Instead of Pure Effect, I'd recommend reading Absolute Magic if you haven't read that.
I have not. I'll read that.
That is a phenomenal book. You won't get it anywhere. Download it if you have to. Go on torrents, you'll find it. But yeah, this book I started. I started mailing as many magicians that I knew, looking for that book to no avail. Till one day I found a contact for the guy who wrote it, and then I mailed him asking if he has a copy that he'd be willing to let go of, and he sent it to me.
Wow.
There's a man called David Berglas, and the book in question is The Mind and Magic of David Berglas.
I might have that book. Like might have a PDF of that book actually.
Yeah, this had just I think 200 copies that were ever printed, and this one's even more unique because I don't know if you can see that that's signed by him by Berglas. When I read this, everything that I knew about magic completely changed. This has no methods. I mean, this has all the methods, but there's not a single magic method. There are methods that you would have never even thought about. I won't recommend reading the PDF because I think that doesn't do justice to the book.
I'm not reading it for that particular reason because David Berglas is an institution.
Yeah, he is. It's the most phenomenal book there is. Everything Darren Brown has ever done in his life is from this book. Every single thing, from his live shows to his TV shows, Everything comes from this book. Every single thing from Enigma to Svengali to Miracle to Evening of Wonder, everything is from here. But yeah, he's obviously added his own touch to it, which is why when we spoke about it initially, and I thought that you can take a script and you can take a trick, this is where it comes from. The Dave Mind and Magic of David Berglas, because Darren Brown, someone I looked up to so much, I realized that everything he's done is from this book. So the show that I'm doing is in December. Most of the show is from this book. It is when I read a book, when I read any magic book, let's say it's a 500-page book, I'll come up with one trick from that book which I can use in a 90-minute show. But with this, the first 90 pages, I had 3 90-minute shows that I could do. And I think it's about 700 pages or something. Yeah, it's 565 pages. So it has a material that is so phenomenal, so brilliant. And his ideas, his thoughts. I've met him once and he did the any card, any number on me, which I think is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. So that book completely changed everything for me. That changed my perception of magic for the fourth time. That changed my ideologies. That changed my thought process. It told me that your job is to entertain someone. It doesn't matter what method you're using. It doesn't matter how clever your trick is. I mean, I can tip this as well because David Berglas himself has tipped this in several places. He used to do this thing where there was a note, like for example, both of us are talking right now. Let's say I take a note, I roll it up, I shake it, and I make the note disappear. And it appears where you are. And he did that. So you check the serial number and everything, and it's the exact same note. And the method for that is just insane. The method is basically, I can tip it because he's spoken about it. You go to a bank, you get a new set of notes, and you take let's say there's one note that says 11111111, that's the serial number. You take 11111 and you take 11114. And with a red marker, you change the 1 to a 4. And you leave it where you have to. You make this disappear and you make that appear somewhere. That's not even a magic method. But it is genius. So it is filled with ideas like this. So that book completely changed it.
I need to recover. So
Take your time.
amazing. My one book that I went and I bought this book from Tannen's actually when I was in New York.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that if this hadn't been here, I would not be here.
Okay.
Have you heard of Stephen Shaw?
Of course I have.
Just checking. Because most people know him by his stage name.
Banachek, yeah. I've met Stephen Shaw 3-4 times as well.
Oh, come on, dude.
But go on. Which book is this? Psychological Subtleties?
Well, you are the Mentalists. It's the first one, and this book, it's a little pricey, but it is like not as pricey as Mind Magic of Burglars, but relatively from what the size and everything is. But this book, you will never understand it the first time you read it. You will understand the tricks. There's no really routines in it. It gives you a lot of principles, and I think Banashek talks about this in one of his lectures. Not the Penguin one. I might have done it there as well, but I have one of his lectures, an older one, where he talks about it. He says when you read Psychological Subtleties, you don't get the book in the first go. You'll think you got it, but it takes you like 2, 3 or 4 times to understand what I meant. And it took me a year I read the book, I loved it. I read it like bits and pieces of it again. I read it from A to Z once. I remember I was just enthralled by his thought process. But it took me a very long time to realize. It took me a year to be like, that's
what it means.
Where the essence of the book was.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say that because he clearly states it in the book, and I think it's way better if you discover it yourself than me telling someone.
Yeah.
But this book changed my performance.
Yeah, for me, there were a few books, but yeah, The Mind and Magic of David Berglas was the first one that came to mind. Now that you mention it, Absolute Magic also had quite an effect on me. I could probably go and grab that as well if you want me to do that.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that, but perfect. So yeah, Banashek is phenomenal. Like a lot of, especially in India, a lot of magicians, like especially the younger magician, would not have heard of him.
Of
But
course,
the sort of stuff he's done is phenomenal. Like Project Alpha.
everything that Peter Turner is doing today has been at some level, and I don't think he'd mind me saying this as well. At some level, that's been inspired by Banachek.
Yes, I've noticed that. Like I've never really thought about it, but the moment you mentioned it, that's the first thought that came to my mind.
Banachek and Animan, both of them obviously. Animan, he's quite vocal about. Banachek, not so much.
Maybe for the fact that Van Schek is still alive.
Yeah, probably that.
Actually, I was reading up on Theodore Hanneman
Hmm.
yesterday and a couple of days before that. Phenomenal guy.
Yeah, I have two of his books.
Practical Mental
Uh,
Magic.
yeah, I have Practical Mental Magic and I have Light and Times of a Legend.
Yes. He
I have
actually has a
those two.
book called The Book Without a Name.
Yeah, there is one that,
I
but
haven't.
yeah,
I
they're very
haven't.
difficult to
Yeah,
procure.
exactly. It was actually like apparently his bullet catch was legendary. He'd like spew
Yeah,
blood when he's doing it. So
yeah,
that's the
I've heard about it.
so that's the thing, right? So like his bullet catch was he'd always do it outdoors, and 2 weeks before he was supposed to do it indoors, he killed himself.
Yeah,
Not related, most probably, but like because he had some other demons of his, which
you never
you should
shared.
definitely like. If someone is watching is not heard about Theodore Hanneman, please look him up. Hanneman is spelled with two N's at the end as well.
Mm.
And phenomenal guy. So anyway, that's a great answer. So absolute magic in the mind and magic of David Burglas, definitely. Burglas is obviously a legend in our community,
Mm.
and along with like the greats like Michael Weber and Max
Of
Malin.
course, yeah. Yeah.
So, and the reason I touched upon Banishek was because it reminded me that you said that you used your name, your normal name, like your Muggle name, Karan Singh, is quite common.
Very common. I know
Very
five
common.
Karan Singhs.
Yeah, it's like for like at least my generation, I guess it's Aryan. I know 8 Aryans.
Yeah,
So if you have a name like Karan Singh or Aryan something, there's a lot of you around.
yeah.
Putting that magic in your name, I actually paid like a lot of attention to this. When you used to search Karan Singh Magic up until 2 months ago, if you search
Mm.
Karan Singh, you would not get you until you scroll down a bit.
Mm.
Now you do. I checked it
Mm.
today just to see if it's made a difference.
Oh, really?
If
I
you
haven't
search
seen
Karan
that.
Singh, your channel tops up on top now. Earlier it used to be Karan Singh Chabda and all those guys in the
Mm.
serials and
Mm.
all that. Banishek changed his name for this reason. Like I'm not sure if you knew about that.
Oh, I
His
didn't know that.
his name
But it
was
makes
Steve.
sense.
His
Steve
name
Shaw is so
was yeah.
common.
He said hey, my name is Steve Shaw, and it's not. It's still a Shaw is like not that common maybe, but
No, it's pretty common. It's pretty common in the
really.
US.
So he said when I was performing, I would like when people talked about me and I would get to know about that. They would say, "Oh, that magician and all that." They would never remember his name,
Yeah.
and he thought that, "Oh, I have an easy to remember name. This should work out for me." But then he realized that if he uses a name like Banishek, like if he uses a name like that, people have to pay a conscious attention just to remember who the
Yeah.
person is. And simply for the fact that they have to do that, they have to remember who he is.
So I have an interesting story as to why it became Karan Singh Magic as well, and why I make it a point to put that name out more. And the story of that is I did a show with another man who has a very, very common name, who's extremely famous 2 years ago, not so much anymore. A man called Honey Singh.
Oh,
I did a show with him 2, 3 years ago, and he got known for his name because he used to use that yo-yo Honey Singh. And he told me that in your show, you have to say your name at least 2, 3 times because it's so common. You have to drill it down people's heads. And he added the yo-yo in front of his name. I added magic after my name because Honey Singh is also a pretty common name in Punjab, I think.
yeah.
So Karan Singh is pretty much as common. So I added magic to it. And yeah, that sort of stuck. And he added yo-yo to it. I know it's a horrible, horrible person to compare with, a horrible example to give, but I think yeah, that advice was pretty strong. And I think Banachek's idea is also fantastic, getting an entirely different name, and it's a name that is catches attention the moment you say it as well. But yeah, I think yeah, some people do it consciously. I never did it consciously.
So great. So have you ever, and this is one of the questions that we have, that have you ever, and I mean, shouldn't be have you ever, it should be more like when you fell in a creative rut, like when you fell in a burnout, like when you're involved in magic and you completely burn out, you're like, ah, I think I've had enough of this for a while. Or like if when you're in a place where you're trying to be creative and you're not thinking of things, you're creating a show, you're writing something down, like this is such garbage, and you end up taking it all off.
Mm.
How do you get yourself out of that burnout, out of that creative rut? What has helped you ever come out of these things?
I think the worst thing you can do is start thinking, oh, that I'm in a rut and I can't come up with anything, or my magic is bad, my writing is bad, because then you're just victimizing yourself. I think the most important thing to do if you hit something like that is to embrace it. Embrace it, understand it, feel it, uh, live with it, live with that feeling of feeling, because I think that teaches you more than anything else. Live with that feeling that you didn't do as well as you'd hoped to do. Live with that feeling that you're thinking, oh shit, I'm garbage at what I'm doing. Because that is more liberating than anything else. Because once you've accepted it, then you start doing other things. Like I've been in that phase for the last 2, 3 weeks. I'm writing this show and I've written half of it and I have no idea what to do after that. I have no idea what tricks I'm going to do. And I'm not working anyway because this is a month where you don't get a lot of shows. So you're in a zone where everything's bad in life. I'm not doing shows. I'm unable to write. But you have to embrace it. And once you embrace it, you start doing other things. You start reading. Which is why all the posts about religion and politics and so on. Because I've been reading up on other things now, which are not taking anything creative out of me. So I'm just reading and I'm expressing my opinion on it. That helps me overcome that rut, at least for me, and get me into a zone where I know I can write. Every year, I'm thankful enough that I can afford it, but every year I take a holiday in the summer. I go to London more often than not because I love the place, and it helps me write. So I sit there and I write. That I've dedicated that time frame that okay, maybe because the other times of the year I'm busy doing shows and I'm busy with other things. So maybe I'm not going to get time to write the things which I want to write. Maybe I'm not going to get the time to do creative stuff throughout the rest of the year. So I take out time in the summer when I know I'm going to be free. I go to London. I take out that time to write. If I'm writing right now, I embrace it, live with it. And yeah, once you've accepted it, I think that's the first step into getting out of that. So once you've accepted it, I think then everybody finds their own little way of how to do it. Maybe it's reading, maybe it's music, maybe it's watching movies or a TV show. I think that just gets you out of that rut and gets you into doing the things that you want to do.
Lovely. My next question actually you got answered just right there. I was gonna ask you what is your creative process, and you talked about like you go to London, you travel, and again, I'm like if you want to elaborate more on that, you can.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I make it a point to watch a few magic shows around the world whenever I can. In fact, this summer I saw more shows than I've ever seen
You saw
in
in and of
Spanish.
itself, right?
Sorry.
You saw in and of itself, right?
Yeah. So I'll take you through my entire tour. What I did. I landed in LA. LA was for work. I was performing for a week. After that, I went to Vegas. Vegas, I saw Penn and Teller.
Mm-hmm.
I saw David Copperfield. I saw Chris Angel. I saw Mac King. I saw Piff the Magic Dragon.
Ah,
I saw 5 of them. From there, I went to New York. And New York, I only went to watch In and of Itself. There's no other reason I went to New York. I saw In and of Itself 3 nights in a row. So I saw it thrice
whoa!
because I'd heard so much about it. So much about
Every
it.
magician, mentalist, anyone says like a respected one. What's your favorite show? In and of itself. In and of itself.
That was for me. That was true for me too. And after New York, I went to Boston, where I saw David Blaine. Uh, and then from there, from my flight from Boston to Delhi, inspired by In and of Itself, I wrote an entire show because I thought the inspiration that I got because of In and of Itself was beyond anything. I reach London
Mm-hmm.
and I go and watch Darren Brown. I come back, I tear the show that I had written and I throw it into pieces because I think Darren Brown for me is far, far, far better than In and of Itself can ever dream of being.
Really?
Any day. For me, In and of Itself, I won't even call it a magic show.
It's more. I've heard people call it like more a theatrical display
It is.
supplemented with magic.
It is a theatrical experience. The entire show is based on the theater of it.
Oh
There's
my
very
god.
little.
I know someone who actually saw the show and they
Okay.
described a bit of it to me, and I didn't like want to listen to all of it because I was like, oh, if I ever get the chance to see it, which I knew I probably wouldn't because
Mm,
he's not like Copperfield who's going to do the same show for years and years and
yeah.
years and years.
Yeah.
And I think the last show is coming up this month, I think.
19th of August. It's
Yeah.
already done.
Oh, it's done, right? It's just
Yeah.
done. Which
2 days
is
ago.
there, and I've heard there's something super magical about a brick because
Heartbreak. Oh
if you
wow! It
go
is the most beautiful thing there
because
is.
if you go to his if you go to the website and you try to like dig around to links, I didn't. No one told me about this at that time. You would find this map with bricks on it, and like people
Yeah.
have tagged pictures with the brick, and he's like, and apparently it's something to do with like a card house that he builds or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I've heard again that the names behind that the in and of itself project are insane. You have Neil Patrick Harris, you have Michael
Yeah.
Weber,
Yeah.
Del Gardio. It was phenomenal.
So for me, in and of itself, was an experience, which is why the December show is happening, because of in and of itself. Some of the story ideas are inspired from there. Some of the story ideas are inspired from Darren Brown. But I think as a show, I thought Darren Brown's was far better than in and of itself, because in and of itself is a theatrical experience that makes you think, of course. It puts you into an emotional zone. Darren Brown's show is everything I'd expect out of a show. It's happy, it's sad, it's angry, it makes you cry, it's flabbergasting, it's everything rolled into one. In and of itself is just one sort of set storyline that they're talking about. So I think for me, Darren Brown was far better. So yeah, for my creative process, coming back to that, watching those shows, it inspires me to come up with new ideas.
Hmm.
And then in London, outside of Darren Brown, I saw a bunch of theatre shows as well. I saw Lion King, I saw Book of Mormon, because then these shows have stories. I saw Woman in Black. Woman in Black has one of the most fantastic storylines there is. So I saw those, and that inspires ideas because you're watching stuff outside of magic. So my creative process involves that as well. Watching TV shows, watching anything that's pop culture and relevant today, and taking ideas from there and applying them into your show. The best show that I did, the one that I spoke about, The Book, ended with Sherlock Holmes, the BBC series. It ended with that because that was something that was very, very relevant back then. So I think that is something that is phenomenal. That is my creative process of watching as many shows as I can, taking inspiration from shows and aspects that I consider above my own creative horizon, and applying that to what I do. I think that's how I usually go about it.
We have our own like Andy Nyman over here.
I have my Andy Nyman's Peter Turner. I bounce ideas off of him. He directs a bit of my shows. He's written some ideas to me as well, which I played
Peter's
with.
actually like, gone through quite like a bit of things like this last 8 months have been quite tough on him, I think.
Yeah, he's been quite unwell, and his dad passed away and all of that. But yeah, he always comes through. He's written a few ideas for me. He's written a broad storyline of a few tricks for me. So he's done that. He's been very nice with that. There's a book called The Book of Demons,
Ah, we have a
which,
question about that, but I don't think you're gonna be answering that.
yeah, I'm sworn to secrecy.
Like I know, uh, like some stuff about it which Peter has told me or he said somewhere which I've paid attention to and all that. Just just yes or no though. Do you have the Book of Demons?
I do.
Lovely. Yeah.
Read it and be done with. It keeps growing
His
every year.
ideology behind that book is amazing.
Yeah.
And we're not going to delve into that because I
Yeah, let's
think
not go into that.
it's going to be too much for this podcast.
Yeah.
So, you talked about your creative process, you talked about getting stuck in a creative rut. Just one question that I think a lot of people want to ask you is how does a newcomer, when like especially you don't, no one knows your name, how do you start marketing yourself? You did talk about doing as many shows, doing work. How do you go about getting that work? Because it's not easy going up to an event planner and saying that I want to do, even if you say magic, because most perception of magic, like once someone in front of me, this guy told this woman that, oh, he's a magician. The girl started laughing,
That's happened to me a bunch of times.
and then when we all of us got together and we had it was we'd gone to one of my dad's friend's house. And
Mm.
there they were having this entire Halloween ka thing. Like it was just a normal get together party sort of thing. So when we were sitting over, we started talking, and this girl started getting more and more intrigued when she started finding out that oh, it's not because someone had talked about unlock her phone, and it's not usually not good when someone just straight up tells you to do this. But then yeah, I moved into a divination routine.
Mm.
She was sold
Yeah.
to the point where she was super excited about what I had planned next. And that evening, I had an impromptu hypnosis gig over there. I started doing it to a couple of people upstairs. Then
Yeah.
news spread because that's something completely bizarre. They're saying their friends like go down into a trance or whatever.
Of
And then I ended
course.
up having like a 30-45 minute long hypnosis show with like a lot of people. Everyone just standing around in a like sitting around in a lounge, and that was amazing. So yeah, uh, my question was, which I have seemed to have.
The question was how to market yourself if you're just getting
Yes,
into it.
yes.
So I think what you need to do, you need to figure out the kind of things that you want to do firstly. I think it's very difficult to just get stage work right out of the back.
Yes.
It's very difficult to get a company to hire you right out of the bat. So what you need to do is perform like you just said at a Halloween party. Do that. Maybe somebody notices you and hires you for something. But let's say you want to do work at a restaurant. You go into that restaurant, you ask to speak to the manager, you show him a couple of tricks, you show him kind of the things that you do. You ask him for work, you ask him that, oh, maybe you have Wednesday night free, for example. Maybe I can come in on Wednesday night and perform at a few tables, which is what I did initially. In Hoskas Village, this place called Rasta. I went up to the manager, I showed him a few things, and I said, can I do this every Wednesday? He said, sure. I did that for a year. And well, the reason I got that job was because there was a girl who used to go to Rasta very often, and I kind of fancied her. That's the reason I got the job. But then I stuck across because I started enjoying it then. So I started doing that for a really long time. And you need to do that. You should go up to the manager, tell him, "Can you see this?" And maybe you have a day of the week free where I can come in and perform for the guests. Do that in 4, 5 different restaurants. So maybe you get a day every day of different restaurants where you're performing every single day. If you want to do birthday parties, which is what I started with, the way that happened to me was I was having dinner with my family, and I had done eating. They were still eating, and there was somebody sitting at the next table just talking, and they weren't really eating. So I went up to them and I performed for them. And the manager of that place came and saw, and then he said, "Oh, we have birthday parties every now and then. Would you be willing to perform at them?" I said, "Sure." So I mean, take up your opportunities. Find the slots where you can perform. You will never know who's watching you. Of course, in present day, social media is very, 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 very important. Make social media accounts across all platforms. Make a Facebook page. Have an Instagram profile. Have YouTube. Start upload regularly. Start uploading content as much as you can. Target it to the right people. If you can afford it, spend some money behind it as well, so that it reaches as many people as it can. And through there, you get a lot of bookings. Make sure you stay consistent there. Just one good video or one good post does nothing for you. I know an Indian magician who has a video which has about 10 million views, but that's just one video. The rest of the video have 100, 115, because he's not consistent. You need to be consistent. Keep putting out content. Keep finding slots where you can perform, and you never know who's watching. So I
Definitely.
think that's my marketing strategy.
Amazing. And I think there's this. So, like, I really like the fact that you said take free work, take as much work as you can. Because if anyone were to visit my website, there's a floating bar on top all the time. It's slightly transparent, but you can see it. It's right. It says a free peek or a free look to the other side. And when you click on it, an ad box. No, it's not really an advertisement. A light box pops up
Hmm.
that explains to you that what I do. I
Hmm.
mean, what I do has been explained to you by the website by just visiting it, but it explains to you that I perform for free. I don't charge people.
Hmm.
And I know the thing is like if you want to get paid eventually, it's not a good long-term strategy, but it's great to get exposure because
Of course,
people are
the
willing.
blog that you mentioned,
Sorry.
which had my blog that you mentioned, which had no posts, I used to write every week, and I used to put those up. I don't relate to them anymore. That's why I've turned them to private. But on the side, there used to be a box which said that I'm willing to perform for free as well. So I think you're coming from the same sort of school of thought.
Yeah.
So I think it is very important. Do as many shows as you can, market them properly. Even if you're doing a free show, make the world think on social media that's the best show that you've ever done.
Yes.
That is important. It is slightly hollow the moment you sort of go within the aspects of it, but I think it's very, very important.
And definitely, as like the connections you make with these, like and now I'm not talking about the performer audience connection. I'm talking about the contacts that you make at these places are insane. Like
Yeah.
these charity gigs that I've done for free, like this NGO, it's I've had a lot of people take my number or take my business card, come up to me after the show, and usually does not happen. Even if like I think I followed a ballet performance, and I did like Luke Jermai's touching on Hoy, and I combined it with another connected routine. But the routine connected, you connected with that. So what happened was that yes, the ballet performance, in my opinion, was better than what I did. That girl was elegant, and she was amazing. She'd been doing it for years. But people came up to me after the show, and they're like, "Can we please have you? I work in an HR department in this corporate. Can I please have your number? Can I please have your card?" Simply for the fact that it's something so different.
Yeah.
I did a corporate show, and we made a theme around influence, and I was doing it with a magician. But he wanted it to be I said, let's just combine magic and mentalism. It's okay. He wanted to take it up as a challenge and like, no, we're only going to do mentalism and all that. And I'm like, okay, fine. In the end, we restructured the show in like the last 2 hours, which is insane. Like, 3 हफ्ते का जो सब plan था, everything got scrapped.
It was
2 hours
changed.
में. New show. It wasn't that great of a show, but again, we got a standing ovation at the end of it because people haven't seen stuff like this. And I think our theme was intriguing. It was about influence. But people believe in this stuff so much. This new woman who recently started working in this corporate came up. We were eating because they're not paying us, but they're giving us free food at least. we're eating, and this woman comes up to us, and we're like, "Apna do, we don't want to disturb their entire thing." And she's like, she tells us that I've just joined this company, and I'm in marketing. I'm responsible for client relations and talking to clients and making sure they stay home. How could I use the skills and the influence that you both of you have in
my work? Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't want to lie to her.
Yeah.
So I will never, but I will now, I won't say that, oh, dude, it was just tricks, because I can see that moment in her eyes that she believes in it, and I don't want to crush her over that. So usually I would give you, usually in such sort of a situation, I perform, I have a couple of lines which I'm not going to use with her, but which help them understand it, and they understand that I have genuinely put an insane amount of time into it, and tell her as a code that sometimes magic is just someone putting way more time in something than anyone else might reasonably expect. And I love that code. It's like amazing.
Yeah.
And I would actually perform Peter's a gift from me to you, because once you do that, and I love that routine. I've changed it a bit again to suit the sort of character that I have. But that routine, I think, I remember I was performing for a skeptic on a plane. I was going on a student exchange program. My school was taking us to Spain, and it was mainly for college applications. I go for this stuff. Udhar, I was performing to this guy, and he's like, there were two people. I was in the aisle seat, so these two people, one of them is like, wow, this is amazing and all. The other is more like, I still think it's sleight of hand. And the weirdest thing is, that was all psychological stuff. I was genuinely using a timing force and a psychological, not an equivoque, a psychological playing card force. Still, he thinks it's sleight of hand. Using like the 17 force, and I'm like, okay, cool, let me do something. Usually, I don't get accused of sleight of hand when there is, and this time there wasn't, and I did, which is kind of weird. I perform getting to know to him And he ended up telling me afterwards, how did I do that? Like he
Hmm.
wasn't saying, wait, how did you do?
Yeah, how did I do
I
that?
see this at ad copies at Penguin and all that. I'm like, whatever. But for the first time that someone's like, how did I do that? And from that point
Hmm.
on, he never doubted anything that I would ever show him.
Yeah.
So that's insane. So yeah, uh, Karan, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? I know it's a big amount of time, and I know this perception will change so much until you get there. But where in your mind, ideally, do you want to be 10 years from now?
So that's a question that gets asked to me in every interview that I do, and I have an answer to that. If I'm still doing what I'm doing right now, I'd be very happy, even if it's in a club, even if it's a birthday party, even if it's a corporate show. As long as I'm stuck to the belief that I started with, that I love doing what I'm doing, and if I'm still in love with it, no matter where I'm doing it, I'd be very happy because I'm somebody who's a staunch believer in not setting goals. I would never say set goals that 5 years from now I want this, 10 years from now I want this house, this car, uh, because it comes from Darren's miracle idea. I already was believing in that, where he says, okay, 10 years from now I want this car, this family, this house. And once you have that, you're like, okay, what do I do now? Is this what life has all been about? And if you can't achieve it, you're depressed that you couldn't achieve it. So I'm somebody who never ever set a goal. Oh, 10 years from now, I want this. I want this. Which is why I have this thing that if I'm still in love with what I do, I'm pretty sure I'll be in a place that I'm very, very
Awesome,
happy.
amazing. That's a great answer to that. Like,
Thanks, man.
yeah, that's beautiful. Um, I had a question. Maybe like I should have asked it to you before this because this was more of a heavy question, and what I'm going to ask you now is relatively light.
Hmm.
I'm confused about this because when I was researching you, I found you don't have a website, do you?
I don't. I've never had a website.
Yeah. Okay, but okay. So when I was researching you, I found this thing called Get Your Logo or something like that, and they had some
Okay.
weird association with you. At least they made it seem like so. But when I tried to look for it again, I couldn't. It sort of seemed like they're your marketing firm or something.
I've never even heard of them in my life.
It's, it was weird. So like it said Karan Singh Magic, apparel, marketing, all this. I'm like, huh. And they had pictures of you up. So I'm like,
Oh, iLogo or Get Your Logo.
yeah.
iLogo?
Could be, could be.
So iLogo made my merchandise. They made my t-shirts.
Oh, thank you for telling me that.
Yeah,
Because,
so I got a designer to make my logo.
mhm.
And I sometimes I wear that logo when in my shows or some. And I don't know if you've seen the logo, have
I
you?
have.
Yeah, so I have a T-shirt which I sell after the show.
Right on the front
I
there's that.
yeah, and I have a deck of cards with the logo, which I sell.
Super expensive
So
deck of cards.
sorry,
Super expensive deck of cards.
super expensive deck of cards that I sell. It's a pretty shit deck as well, very honest. But yeah, so the T-shirt and the cards are something that I do sell because I think it's more of a collector's item than anything else.
Exactly.
And yeah, so I think iLogo did that for me. They designed the t-shirts.
Oh, okay, nice. I actually I recently got like the shirt I'm wearing that I got.
Mhm.
Like I designed this logo.
Oh yeah, it says Mentalist, Hypnosis beneath it as well.
Yeah. And like there's a better pattern on the back which has some references to mentalism, inside jokes here and there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I think the only reason I have this is because I have serious approach anxiety, especially when you're doing the cold
So
approach. Sorry.
you froze up slightly there, so I didn't catch what you
All
said.
right, I said the only reason I have this, like the logo I designed myself with the graphic design software. I sort of learned it for some reasons, and I was like, oh, cool, I can do this now.
Mhm.
So the reason I got this shirt designed is because I have serious, like everyone does, with approach anxiety. When I'm doing a cold approach on a street, it's very difficult when I don't have a camera with me. When
Hmm.
someone, because it's odd to go to someone and be like,
Yeah, I know
can I
what you
show
mean.
you a magic trick? Hey, I'm a magician. I'm working on a show. Can I? This gives me some authority. Just the
Hmm.
fact that it says anything under it relating to what I'm saying,
Yeah.
even if I don't have a cameraman shooting me, I can still. I still
Automatically gives
have,
authority.
and even if it's not going in there, like even if it's not just for them, it's just psychologically in my head. It still
Mm.
helps me. So
Of
that's
course,
the
yeah.
only
No,
reason
that's
I have this.
interesting. That's a really interesting way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, again, the only reason I have this, like,
Mm.
genuinely, and I don't want to sell these. I don't want to do anything. It's just for the fact that it helps me. Even if it doesn't do exactly what I think it will, it makes me think that's what it does, and it just
Mm.
makes me more confident.
No, it's a smart thing. It's sort of like you wearing your kada. It feels awkward without it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like that. Yeah.
And Timon Kraus, I don't know if you've heard of the guy.
Hmm.
Yeah, his TED talk. It's entirely about
On this,
manipulating
yeah, of
emotions.
course.
He talks about his lucky socks, and he says the only reason he wears them is because conditioning and all that.
Yeah.
You know, have you ever felt? Okay, this is more of a specific question that happened. An incident that happened during your show. I saw. You remember, like when Papa CJ was doing something. He was doing his stand up. You'd already come out and you'd done your openers and all that. And this guy was using his phone, and you took his phone and you went back on stage. And a little while later, you went back and gave it to him and said, "Please don't use," and all that. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I haven't done anything like that ever. But was that like a thought out thing? Because that guy seemed pretty worried when you walked off with his phone.
Of course, I want people to feel that because I think people in India, not just India, in fact, around the world, more so in India, I've noticed that people are taking the liberty to sit right in the front row and be on their phones. That's a very disrespectful thing.
Yes.
Imagine you're talking right now and I'm just on my phone. That would be the worst possible thing there is. So I had a few lines as well because at corporate shows, people take you for granted of being on the phone. So I've come up with a lot of lines to get people off their phones. And one of them is I just take their phone and I put it in my pocket and it's with me for the rest of the show. And I give it back at the end.
And
One
they
of them
gave
I
it.
heard, I'll tip the line. It's a pretty famous line from street performers. There's somebody sitting in the front row talking on the phone. And I walk up to them and I take the phone and I start talking to the person they're talking to. And then I say, I'm Karan, you were interrupting the show, blah, blah, blah. And they get all awkward. And I put them on speaker. And then I say, well, since you're here, let me ask you a question. And the question is, it's a riddle, which basically says, what's got small balls and hangs down? And they're all awkward. They go like, I said, I'll repeat. What's got small balls and hangs down? They have no answer. I said, it's a bat. A bat which has small balls and is hanging down from the ceiling. Okay, my next question. What's got big balls and hangs up? And I hang up and I give the phone back. I do that. So there are a bunch of things that I do. There are a bunch of ideas that I use to get people to pay attention because they'll never pay attention. They'll buy tickets, they'll sit in the front row, they'll be on the phone, not realizing that they're ruining the experience for them as much as they are for me.
For the person, and especially for the person sitting next to them. I
For the
get
person
super
sitting next to
annoyed
them.
when someone next to me brings out a phone. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Precisely. It happens in movies, it happens in live shows. So I think one by one show at a time, I'll grab one phone at every show. There comes a time that people start realizing
You know,
that it's not right to use a phone.
I think I'll talk to you something about after we're done with the podcast, that you will think regarding these phones things. I don't want to talk about this Siddhar because it goes a little bit into methodology. Not something that's published, but still I feel the performance.
Of course, no, I know where you're coming from.
Yeah. So okay, that was interesting. Like, so you've never had people get super offended when you take their phone from them and start talking to it?
They do. They do. But if somebody comes up to me and says after the show, like you're asking me right now, that person got awkward, somebody would come up to me and after and say, oh, how dare you do that? I'm like, how dare you talk on the phone sitting in the front row? At least have the courtesy, at least have the decency to get up and walk out
Yeah.
and not disturb everybody else, including me.
Yeah.
I think people need to be educated on it because people don't have exposure to theater and live performance art. Because of comedy, it's something that's recently started. People have started going to live shows. So I think people need to learn it. People need to understand that it's not okay to be on the phone. It's not okay to be talking to somebody sitting next to you during the show. Talk as much after. If it's critical, if it's something that can't wait, step out. That's nicer than disturb everybody else and the performer.
So actually, like, yeah, I can understand that because I guess being a performer, I can really relate to that. Where, like, if I'm talking, especially when I'm talking to someone and they pull out their phone in the middle of a show,
Yeah.
it's horrendous. So I don't know if you know about this. Poshak was doing his show Psychics. He's been doing that for a while. I went for the second performance, which you weren't there for. I think you'd gone off for your vacation,
Hmm.
and he gave me the opportunity to open for him.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I can honestly say it was bad. And
Okay.
the only reason for that is because I had did two performances around Poshak recently. Both were very experimental. One was at the open mic,
Mm-hmm.
one was there. And Udhar, I tried to take a little inspiration from what he had told me earlier about it's okay that in the beginning ripping off people, all that. Not ripping them off, but taking inspiration.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, let me try to completely channel my inner Luke Jermaine for this. And I
Hmm.
did that. And it sucked so bad. Because and then for the second for the thing is like I did have a good line in there where I was talking about because I was opening I wanted to make sure no one takes out their phones and all, so I have a line which it's not Luke Jermaine, but it's very Jermaine-esque where I talk
Hmm.
about if any of you have one of these magical little devices in your pocket, please either turn it off or turn it on silent, please place it away. This already brings you enough stress on the outside. Why
Hmm.
would you want to bring that in here and ruin
Hmm.
the experience not just of yourself but of the person sitting next to you?
Hmm.
So, but the thing is, so wo show hua, and then second time I was like, okay, let me go the complete polar direction of what I just did and be as funny as I can. The problem is when you force yourself to be funny, you
You're
turn
never
out to be the
funny.
person people are laughing at, not laughing with.
Hmm.
And in both of those performances, after that, I realized that, which you talked about, that even if you're taking someone else's thing, put yourself in it. And I knew it. I knew about this. But I never really knew about this. Like, I never understood it to the way that I do now that I am not Luke Jermaine. I can never be him because I
Hmm.
have not had the same life experiences as him. I don't
Hmm.
talk the way he does. I don't think the way he does. And why would I want to do that when I can do the same things as myself?
Yeah.
And I think my performances used like my peak time was 2017, but
Okay.
then a lot of studies got in the way and all that. And the only reason I can't perform as good as well as I did back then was because I can't perform as much. And I
Hmm.
think doing it again and again and again gave me the exposure.
Of course,
Now
it
I'm
is. Yeah.
building it back to that point slowly and slowly. And I'm happier with my performances now than I was at Poshak's event.
Hmm.
So yeah, completely understand your point on that, dude. And I think, yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to what you said. That's great. Uh, let's okay. Let's talk about this. How did you initially, and even now, how do you go about? I've when I look at you, I get a very specific image in my mind when I think about Karan Singh Magic. And I know all this, like a lot of this is like deliberate. You always dress black on black on black. Your look, everything has remained consistent. But how'd you come up with this? Was it just something that naturally evolved? That you're gonna have a ponytail and you're gonna have a short stubble? Or is it
Hmm.
something that you deliberately sat and decided, okay, I want this to be what my story is. I want this sort of a character, and I want this like the person to look like this.
I don't think I've ever thought of that. I still haven't thought about that. The way I look hasn't isn't something that's ever bothered me or ever mattered to me. I have a ponytail is because I don't want to wear a turban.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not comfortable with it. And the reason I never cut my hair is because when my grandmother was around, I know that she would have felt really bad if I cut my hair because of the religious aspects. And by the time she died, some people had started knowing me because of the look, so it was too late to change. As for the black clothes, when I started doing shows, I used to wear a lot of different clothes. And before the show, it took me about 2 hours to figure out what to wear. I was getting in the way of the actual show. Hey, I just woke up and I replaced my entire wardrobe with black clothes, and that's been the get up ever since.
I actually do that as well because so whenever I'm performing, I have just these shirts and I'm like, these are very like they're very similar in style. So I'm like, whenever I'm performing, I just pick any one of them up. I don't want to be like with her, huh? What will look good?
For you, they're similar. For me, if I go and buy shirts, I go to a place, let's say I go to XYZ, I pick up a black shirt, I'll buy four of those exactly the same. They'll have nothing printed on them, they'll be exact same size, everything. Because why waste time trying to figure out what you're going to wear when you have other things to worry about?
I think
So
Steve
that's the
Jobs
only
also
reason.
talked about that.
Sorry?
I think Steve Jobs also talked about that. He always wore a
Yeah, Steve
turtleneck.
Jobs spoke about that. Yeah, of course. I have the black turtlenecks that Steve Jobs used to wear too, because I'm a huge Steve Jobs fan myself. So I think, yeah, the black clothes have come from there. And the other look, I've never really thought about it. It's just something that's happened automatically. Most of it is who I am.
Mm-hmm. That's lovely, amazing. Uh, okay, let's talk about this. So, why magic? Like, y- you could have done anything in your life, anything. Like,
Mm.
genuinely, like you were in college, you could have had a traditional life. I mean, conventional life that most people do. Why magic?
I take a line from here. One of the first exposures of magic in Harry Potter. There's a man called Ollivander who says the wand chooses the wizard and not the other way around. So, in a sort of poetic way, I think magic chose me instead of me choosing magic.
Yes. Okay.
I don't think I can see myself do anything else. I don't see myself performing anything else. I don't see myself living any other life because I don't know how to. There's one skill that I'm good at, and thankfully people are paying me for it, and I can make a living off it. I can make people happy performing it because I don't know how to do anything else. This
Okay.
is all I know. This is all my
Amazing.
life. Ever since I knew how to make some kind of a decision for myself, it's just been magic, nothing else. Ever since I was 11, which I think is an old enough age to know that, oh, you have to wake up at this time, you have to eat at this time, so on and so forth. So the decision that I took was that I want to Google how tricks are done. And yeah, I think it sort of happened on its own, and I never ever gave myself an option. My mom always had this thing that you have to have a plan B should magic fail to fall back onto so that you can make a living for yourself. I never had a plan B. I still don't have a plan B. If tomorrow the death threats actually come through and people try to kill me and I almost die and I still have to keep living for myself while being alive, I don't see myself doing anything else because I do not have a plan B. It's just magic or nothing else.
Your love for the art is amazing to look into. Like,
Yeah, that's all that matters.
like just looking at you and seeing where you've come from, like when you started off performing, and at least from when the videos that I could find, like when I scoured the internet, completely combed through, and I found some. uh,
Yeah.
you have come such a long way, and I'm sure you have just way more in front of you than you've just left behind. Uh,
Thank you.
let's talk about this. What do you think? Okay, I think this is going to be somewhere where we start wrapping it off. It's
Hmm.
just a couple of more questions, and then I can leave you be and enjoy your life. I think we just could you narrate? Try to keep it a little shorter, but you go in detail if you need to. Narrate your worst ever performance, and followed. Okay, let's do this.
Um,
At
I
least,
won't call it the worst
yeah,
ever
one of the one
performance.
that comes to mind. It's really difficult to rank them. I get that.
I'll
One that
talk
really
about
sticks.
one
Yeah.
which changed my outlook onto everything, and it I think made me a performer. This was when I was 17, your age. I'm on stage in my college. It's my freshers party thing that you used to have. I'm on stage and I thought I'll do magic. And I did a trick which failed on stage in front of 700 people. And as a 17-year-old with 700 of my peers sitting in the audience, I thought their first reaction would be what Darren Brown's reaction was. Do you want to try again? But that wasn't to be. Their reaction was boo. 700 people booed me off stage in my first month of college. 700 people. And I think for 2 years after that, every night before I went to bed, that's all I heard, the sound of the echo of 700 people booing me off stage. And I think nobody is ever going to be a performer. Anyone who's watching and wants to be a performer, you're never going to be a performer if you don't get booed off stage. I think it's the most important experience that you're ever going to learn.
receive, because unless and until you get rejected by 700 people at one time, and you're still going back the next year to perform for those people, that makes you realize how much you love what you do, and it doesn't matter if people are rejecting it. So
Amazing.
for me, that was the moment somebody says worst performance, that comes to mind.
Love it. So now, because I don't want to just go straight down there, what would be one of your best performances where you felt just completely satisfied?
I did a show for. This is very easy to answer because I think this was up there with probably the best show I've ever done. I was hired to perform by Manipal Institute of Technology in Manipal, and I started the show. And I was told it'll be for the students, whoever wants to attend. So in my head, I was seeing like an auditorium with 700 people, and they put out flyers to whoever wants to come. On the day of the show, they said we can't do it in the auditorium because we've had more people wanting to attend, and the auditorium won't fit that number of people. So I said, what do we plan to do then? So they built a stage in the ground, and I thought, okay, 1,000 people might be there. And they introduced me. I'm backstage. I can't see the number of people. I can hear a noise, so I know there's a certain amount of people. I might know there'll be about 1,000, 1,200 people. And they introduce me, they say, welcome, Karan Singh Magic. I walk on stage and my jaw drops and I look around, there are about 3,500 people in the audience. And I'm like, are you sure you know who I am and you've come to watch me? And then I start doing the show, and it was one of those days where everything is just going perfect. And I got a standing ovation from 3,500 people.
Insane.
And there's this picture that I have with me standing, just taking a bow, and it's my back and the entire audience. It's 3,500 people, and I was like, this just happened. And that's, I think, probably up there with top three best shows I've done. There'll be a couple more that come to mind, but that's the first one that does.
Amazing. Lovely. So this actually, so how long ago was this approximately?
This was 9th of March 2017, so a year and a half.
Nice. Wow, that's very close to the when I had my best performance. That's I think it was the same time. Like not the
I
date.
think March 2017 was a good month for mentalists.
So this actually reminds me, a lot of your videos have you revealing whenever you're revealing a number, you go about doing it like going behind their backs and showing like in certain. What's your ideology behind that? Because when I saw that for the first time, I think you did it with where I saw it for the first. I think you did it with Karan Johar.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was him or someone, and or it was at the office or something. You were when you did that, the first thought that came to my mind was why wouldn't he write it down and go for that reveal that like you give it to them and they're like, what's your first number? 9? Look at what you've written. Oh, 9 and all that. Or like some sort of written reveal where this person on stage also gets a little something.
So the videos are, I think, far different from live. What you're saying in videos and me putting up fingers, that is usually towards the end of my show. And throughout the show, I've been writing things either on a whiteboard or a pad or something.
Okay.
And towards the end, usually I hold up fingers if I'm doing a password thing. It's because I have an ideology that if I write down something, it's easier for the audience to remember as opposed to me holding up fingers. And it's a private piece of information that I'm trying to figure out. So I don't want a lot of people to remember it. I want them to remember it for that moment, but later probably forget it. So that's the reason I would hold up fingers. B, it adds a different sort of reveal. The password thing is my end for a really long time. In fact, I think the show that you saw as well was I used a password as an ending. I don't anymore. I will do that in that show as well because that's not a solo show. In my solo show, I don't do the password thing. But yeah, I started doing that because I think that adds a layer to it, and people start thinking that, okay, this is important now because this is being done very differently from what we've seen so far. This must mean more than the other things. So it adds a layer. It adds. Yes, I know your argument that people on stage don't get a trick, but they get that trick when everybody applauds.
Yeah,
In
I
that
mean,
Karan Johar video, when both of us are holding up two and everybody starts applauding, I don't ask him to open his eyes. He just opens his eyes on his own
oh
because he
wow,
realizes that applause is happening. So I
that's
think it forms that experience for somebody on stage as well, where they just hear applause.
yeah. I never thought about it that way. That it could be towards the end because by that time they're in your team, and if
Yeah.
everyone else is reacting, like they know you didn't just hold up a sign that says please applaud or please
Yeah.
react or something like that. Completely like great. That was a great. I could not have thought you would have had such a good justification for that.
Yeah.
Because that thing always stuck out to me. Like, there's a lot of videos of you doing that all over the
Yeah.
internet. Like, you do that a lot on your channels, and well as I think the Quint, you
Yeah.
did the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was yeah, great. And okay, so now we've had a lot of insight from your end, and I've gotten the opportunity to pick your brain a lot of things regarding performance. But as I understand, you are to lecture at Tannins, I think, at the end of this year.
Am I?
Really?
So I don't know if that's going to work out. I was at Tannen's last month when I was in New York.
Mhm.
I think my lecture is more of a performance. I'm not really teaching anything. So it's more of my brand of jazz magic, which again is inspired from a number of people, from one Tamari's Darren to Peter.
That is amazing at Jazz Code Magic.
Yeah. So I think that's something that I performed at the Magic Circle as well in London, and that's something that's gotten appreciations from a few people. I have a few versions of an any card, any number, which I'll just do to magicians, which is from a borrowed shuffle deck, which I never touch. So yeah, I think that that might happen if I'm ever in New York again, but nothing official.
Okay, I understand that. So, okay. But my question is so, do you plan on releasing a product ever?
No, never. I don't think I appeal much to the magic community anyway to come up with a product of my own.
Oh.
I have a lot of people are interested. I put out a video of an any card, any number,
Hmm.
and a lot of people are interested in taking learning the method for that.
I saw the comments on that video.
Yeah, and a lot of I mean it's a mix and match of different tricks. It's the method's not entirely mine, but the routine is mine.
I can
I asked the
understand.
concerned people. I won't go into names. I'm sure you already know. I asked a few people if it's okay for me to write it and sell it to a select group of people, and they said okay. So I have sold that to 25 people, and I don't plan to sell it further. That's the only group I've sold it to because I don't perform that version anymore. I have my new version that I do. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever come up with a product and I'll release it to the public. I don't think that's for me.
So, like, you're not gonna go to Penguin Magic or Murphy's or Illusionist or
No, no, that's
Theory.
not. I'm happier being more of a performer than a creator. I know my limits. I'm not a good creator. I'm a good performer.
Lovely. Actually, like, yeah. And I think when you start off creating, you recreate history a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I think at one point this is gonna sound really weird. I was sitting around with a deck of cards in my hand. It was whatever I was using, and I was forcing myself to create, which I think is never a good thing now.
Mm.
But I was sitting there, I was like, I need, and somehow, I, in my mind, I went delirious. Like I was completely out of it, and I ended up creating the double lift again. Even though I realized it really soon after, but can you imagine that kid like you're in that state where you end up recreating the
Creating
double?
something that's been
Why
the
has no one
basics.
done this before? I even recreated an impression device once,
Oh wow, okay.
thinking it's original when I was like a couple of
Yeah.
years back.
I think initially when I got into magic I had that thing that no, I want to create and I want to sell.
I think everyone goes through like a creation phase and a
Yeah.
Daniel Madison phase.
No, I don't think I ever went through a Daniel Madison
I
phase. That
did.
never happened to me.
Most people I know did. I know a guy who's still in
I never went to a Daniel Madison phase. I never fancied him much. But no, I think for me, I know my limitations. I know I'm not a good creator. I'll look out to Peter to create stuff. I look out to other people who I take ideas from. I know I'm a good performer, so I can do that better. I'm not a good creator, so I won't go into that.
it. Okay. That makes sense. So, okay, this question's gonna be a little bit odd, a little weird. Just a second, just give me a sec right there. So you, okay, yeah, you talk a lot about how to explain this. Okay, let me say it this way because I know like a lot of magicians who are gonna be watching this are relatively new. Either you, okay, either you don't have a kid or you've done a very good job at hiding him. But what would you tell someone if you ever have like you don't have a kid, right?
No, I'm not even married.
Okay, if your kid you don't that's not like mutually exclusive or something.
Yeah, but I mean,
But okay, if your kid ever comes up to you and says, "I want to perform magic," and they don't know magic, like they want to perform street magic and all, what would you tell them?
I tell them to sit at home and learn first. I think spend that 6, 7 years learning if they really want to do it. Anyone who messages me, I mean, if you want to talk about this, anyone who messages me says, "Oh, sir, please teach me a trick." My reply to them is, "Look online. I'm not going to tell you how it's done." Let's say they reach out to me today, which is the 21st of August. I said, "Come back to me on the 21st of August 2020. If you're still into magic, if you're still learning tricks, then I know that you're genuinely interested." So if my kid also comes up to me and says, "Teach me a trick," I'll say, "Do your own research. There are a number of books lying around the house. Pick up one of them, read it, and if he or she is still interested in it 2 or 3 years down the line, then I'll get down to teaching him a rule.
Amazing, great.
Not before that."
So yeah, okay, that's a great. Okay, I understand that. So so my next question is more of like a, I guess it's more of a thought.
Okay.
Why? Okay, so relatively, if you were to look globally around the world, there are relatively less female magicians than there are guys. Even more so if you were to look specifically towards the mentalism industry, like if you were to consider it separately. And it's even worse in India. Like I haven't met a woman magician here. Like, of course, there's some names which are like performing on television, or but I'm talking about people like you and me who just go around performing at these places and who's still on their journey. Like, why do you think that is? Why is it like that
I
we're so
think that's to do with the history of magic.
Mhm.
It's always been using a pretty woman as a distraction.
Mhm.
It's always been the woman in the box who you're cutting.
Yeah.
It's always been the woman that you float. So historically, she's always been a magician's assistant as opposed to the performer herself. I think of late, I've seen a number of women magicians. Of course, the number of male magicians dwarfs those of women magicians. But I think that will change. It's a wave that's happening around the world that people are realizing that people are asking these questions to start off with. Nobody was asking these questions 10, 15 years ago. And it's so important that it's being voiced. Because only if it's being voiced do you start taking notice and do you start letting other people know that yes, there is a woman who does this well and there is a woman who should be doing this. Why shouldn't she? If she's interested. So I think it's a historical representation that women are the ones who are the props and women are the ones who are the assistants as opposed to the performers themselves. I think it's more of a historical misrepresentation. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a misrepresentation historically, it's just been how it is. And it's horrible that it's been that. But I think hopefully in the future that's going to change. I know a few women magicians in India who are performing. Not as well, but I think they'll. All of us are learning as it goes along,
Yeah.
and all of us will get there.
We definitely will. I sure hope so.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, honestly, like, there aren't nearly as many
yeah.
female
There should be
magicians.
far more.
Yeah, and like, and I simply think again, yeah, you're right. You're completely right. This is mainly due to like the historical. I never thought about it that way. That it's because of historical representation. Because the woman has been a prop a lot of the time. It's like
Yeah,
a prop.
yeah,
It's never been like even if I think one of the greatest movies in magic ever made is The Prestige.
yeah. Even in that, she's
Scarlett
just a prop.
Johansson was just the prop, and if you were to like look at her as a character, she
Mhm.
played a great characterial role of like in the back and everything. But
I,
every single
s-
time
I,
they showed her
s-
on stage, she was still just the person they could like. Even when
yeah,
like Hugh
true.
Jackman's character, and this is again minor spoilers because skip like you've seen the movie, yes?
about 40, 50 times.
Yeah. So if you haven't skipped 30 seconds for this, even when Hugh Jackman's character wants to know Christian Bale's is like secret for the transported man, he sort of treats the woman as a prop that he uses to like
To get the
send her.
secrets, yeah.
Yeah, like of course the character on his own was amazingly well portrayed. It was well
Yeah.
done, phenomenal. But if you were to look at it from a perspective of if I was a real person at the time watching a show, she never had really much of a role
Yeah,
like
a lot of
on screen.
significance. Yeah, true.
Amazing. So, by the way, did you say you went? Okay, no, we'll touch on that later. I think we should. Yeah, Karan, we've talked a lot about a lot of these things, and I think we just have one more question remaining. And after this, we can, I guess, let you go. Uh, where do you think the mystery arts are going in the next couple of years?
In India or all across?
Completely, like all inclusive.
I think the only way is up because magic has been treated like shit for a really long time. And it continues to evolve. If you look at modern history of magic, let's say we start from 1997 when David Blaine came around. That completely changed people's perception of magic. Skip to 2003, 6 years later, Darren Brown comes along and he completely changes people's perception of magic. Skip another 6 years, Dynamo comes around, and for a large section of the audience till today, Dynamo is the greatest magician in the world. And he completely changes people's perception. If you look at within the magic community, skip another 6 years, someone like a Peter Turner comes around, Fraser Parker, Michael Murray, all these people come around, and they change magic again. So I think we've got that ball rolling of that 6 year period where things keep changing and things keep evolving. So I think we need to stick onto that, and the only way for that is up. If I speak India specifically, because I have more of a knowledge of that, people have only just started going out for live shows with the comedy boom. Next in line, 100% for me is magic. There is no other art form I see where people are going night after night to watch a show.
Yes.
Because I think most of us together, I credit myself for it as well, slightly snobbishly. I credit a few other people for it as well, that we created a space that people know about it. It's a niche group, it's not a lot of people. It is where comedy was maybe 8, 9 years ago in India, where few people knew about it. It's the same with magic and mentalism or the mystery arts right now. Give it another couple of years, and it's going to have that, and then slowly go into that as well. But around the world, I think we've set that ball rolling of that 6 year time period. And I think that's been historical. Even if you go pre-David Blaine, if you go 1991, 1980, 1985 was Paul Daniels, 1981 was David Copperfield. So all different styles and art forms keep evolving. So I think it's the only way is just to keep having that ball rolling. Someone's going to come and kick it again, and it's going to go to a new direction. And I think all of us have to evolve with that.
So, so your 6 year theory, that's a
Yeah.
great thing. So, can we assume that 2021 Karan Singh will come along and change magic completely?
Oh, I'd like to think so.
Amazing.
In India, definitely, if not
Yes.
around the world. But yeah.
So actually, we did accidentally miss out on one question. So this is where I'm going to end it.
Okay.
But I'm going to place that question back
Before
in the
this.
post.
Okay.
As far as I could find, a lot of your performances are with celebrities. Yes, the
Mm-hmm.
first performance that I could find, and I could be completely wrong with this because that's the one I could find, was with Ranvijay Singh and
Rajiv Makhni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that wasn't your first one, even if it was, how did you get to that point? Was it just performing so much at Rasta and performing at these events and all that you eventually got connections to reach there, or was it more? Yeah.
So my first performance for a celebrity alone was Ranvijay. This was 2011, I think. He was there in Delhi University to promote his movie, and he was just promoting, and I jumped up on stage and I did a trick for him, and a bunch of people filmed that. So I think that's the first person I performed for was famous. And then from there, I was doing a show at the Belgian embassy later that year. In fact, within that week, and I met Rajiv Makhni there, and I did something for him. And I met a bunch of other people at that Belgian embassy who were mild celebrities, and I started doing shows for them. Rajiv and Ranvijay happened to be at a show, and I happened to be at a show together where all three of us were coincidentally booked. So I made that video there. But I think it just comes out of grabbing the opportunity. I saw Ranvijay on stage, and I wasn't shy to jump up and do a trick for him all those years ago. And I think that's very, very important. Finding the right opportunity, jumping up on stage whenever you can, and performing as much as you can. I'm still in touch with Ranvijay. I'm still in touch with Rajiv. There's a man called Apar Shakti Khurana, who's Ayushman Khurana's brother, who was in Dangal recently. I've been in touch with him as well because he was also there when I did that trick on Ranvijay. He was an RJ back then. Now he's an actor. So yeah, I've kept in touch with all of them. And all of that has just happened through finding your right moments and jumping up on stage and grabbing the opportunity whenever you can.
Yeah, and I think your career, like career is not the right term for it because a lot of people look at you and they'd say that, oh, he got lucky. I don't think you got lucky. Simply
Yeah,
for the
I
fact
think.
that they just see that, okay, he's there doing shows right now. They don't see the 16 years of work that has gone into that show.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, the moment, let's say they see a trick, for them that's 2 minutes of a trick. You and I know that's probably 6 years of our lives trying to create that 2 minute trick. So I don't think it's ever luck. You create your own luck.
But you did get I think a lot of people did get to know about you after the Amir Khan, after his New Year's thing. I think you went for.
Yeah.
How'd you get that gig? Because that was insane.
So a friend of mine was working on this movie called Secret Superstar.
Okay.
Behind the scenes, and that friend happens to run a company called Big Bad Wolf that manages me.
Yes, I
So
know about that.
yeah, so he told Amir that, and Amir's a bit of a magician himself. He knows a lot of tricks.
Wow, really?
Yeah, he can solve a Rubik's cube in like 20 seconds.
Amazing.
He does all of that as well. So he told Amir that I know a guy who does this. Amir said, "Can you do something over the phone?" And that guy called me and said, "Can you do something over the phone?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can try." And I did a trick for Amir over the phone. And then he said, नहीं, ये कुछ setup है, कुछ app है या कुछ है. इसको सामने लेके आ. So 2 weeks after that was his Diwali party, which he hosts annually. I went for that. He didn't know me. He'd never seen me. So I went and I just chilled there for 3-4 hours. At the end of those 3-4 hours, at around, I think it was 3:30 at night, I told him that I'm the guy who did a trick for you over the phone. He said, nahin. I said, haan. And then he paused the entire party. And then he said, do something right now. And I did something. Went from 3:30 to 8:30 in the morning, I was just performing. Because he was so intrigued by it. Ever since then, I've been called to his parties multiple times a year. And through there, because of Amir, he's put me in touch with the right people. He's got me a lot of shows. He's made my career without even meaning to. So yeah, he's someone I look up to a lot.
Lovely, amazing. So, I think I just want to touch on this one last thing that you've done great and all. And have you ever, and I'm sure you have, but you know those moments of real magic?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about like it can be taken in a lot of interpretations, but when everything just goes right, when you guess something for no reason at all, and it's the biggest hit of your entire show. And I remember this one thing. The Amir Khan, the way you describe Amir Khan, the way he seems to be, like, the way the personality that exudes from him, reminds me of this guy I know. He's a college consultant, the guy I work with, because I'm applying abroad. So he's the guy who helps me with all that. He challenged me. A lot of time he performed for him, and he's a huge believer in a lot of things. So he was always like flabbergasted. He was always stunned with silence, and he loved watching that. And I could tell because he was always really excited. Can you show me something? Can you have something new? So, one time he challenged me, you have to guess the name of my dog because he's recently gotten a puppy. And I was like, oh, let me just do it next time. I have to leave right now. And I'm like, oh, shit. Like, because social media, it's not there. And I don't want to go with like Fraser's work because everything I'd done up to this point had been scream it in your head. It had been propless.
Okay.
Scream it in your head, and I had gotten the information to some other means. But I could get it. And I have a process with it where I use hands and everything. The thing was, he expected me to do the same. I was like, shit. But then I prepared this routine that Jack Curtis has, a phenomenal guy. Distorted Visions is his show, is his download where he teaches this. I was ready with it, and I went and sat. First thing he told me, हाँ बोल मैक्स चलाओ अपने अपने माइंड में. And he completely he slipped from his head that he just named his freaking dog in front of me. And I was like, sorry? हाँ, अपने डॉग का नाम चलो माइंड में, तूने कहा था ना करेगा. And I was like, sure, let's go. I used time delay so that कुछ भी थोड़ा सा ना हो. I thought a little bit of a story. I'm like, but you know what? Let's try this slightly different. Give me your list. Go for it. So yeah, thank you so much for being here, Karan.
Thank you so much, Kabir. I think this has been so much fun. It's so great that someone is taking the initiative to spread the idea of magic around India, and more people get to know about it. And I'm so thankful to you that you did this. And I hope this series keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Thank you so much.
And 10 years from now, where I see myself in this podcast again talking about new things.
Lovely. So, I mean, we'd love to have you again. And you have been super insightful. Like, this episode has gone on longer than it should have.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for taking your time, but this
was... Not at all. It was a lot of fun.
This was so insightful. It was amazing. Your thought process is phenomenal. Like, I'm sure others might have told you this, but the way you talk about things and the passion that you have for this art, amazing. And I'm sure in like 2021 you are gonna be like a big thing. You're gonna be a force to reckon with. I'd like to thank all of you for watching. If you've stuck around for so long, I'd like to thank Karan Singh Magic for being here one more time. His knowledge has truly helped carry the torch of magic and creativity further. I'd like to thank you all for being here, and this has been the second episode of The Creative Process. This is me, Kabir Hanspal, signing out.